Welcome to episode 18 of Northern Lights, the online chat show which focuses on football in the north and northeast of Scotland. My name is Martin Johnston, and each week I'm joined by our resident journalist and fellow Rothesloon, Dave Edwards. Also joining Dave and I each week are three well-known names from North football, both from the past and the present. Just a few guys reminiscing about the good old days and from time to time giving a distanced opinion on the modern game. A bit like Soccer AM meets the Antiques Roadshow. Our first guest was a well-known character during his days as a player in the Highland League. Tommy Madden's career started with Aberdeen junior side East End before he joined Lossiemouth in 1985, and where he stayed for 7 seasons. In 1992, George Adams signed Tommy for Peterhead, and he was at Recreation Park for 2 seasons before he returned to Murray, this time with Rothes, who were under the stewardship of Rothesloon Graham Scott. Welcome to the show, Tommy Madden.
How you doing?
Well, that's a very droll. Welcome, Tommy.
droll we are.
Evening, Tom. How you doing?
Hi, Dave. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And you're looking very fit. You're looking very fresh and suntanned.
I'm suntanned. That'll be the lockdown at Desert Day.
Of course, you live in Aberdeen, Tom. How are you coping with this wave, second wave of lockdown?
Well, actually, Dave, I moved up to Elgin a few years ago, so I'm up in Elgin now.
Oh, good for you.
It's great. Love it.
John, Teasdale country.
Yes, exactly.
How's life treating you in Elgin?
Pardon?
How's life treating you in Elgin then?
It's great. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, my wife got a chance to move here about 16, 17 years ago at work. So she just says, "Oh, well, I want to try it." I said, "Yeah, it's fine. I know everyone up there." But you forget that it's near Saturday night after the football. Everybody's got lives.
That's true. Well, I'd like to think that someday in the not too distant future we'll meet in at one of the Highland League football grounds, Tom. That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I do go and watch. I do go to Lossie. I actually go into Elgin City a bit as well.
Good stuff. Near Rothes, though.
I've been to Rothes maybe once. That was we Darcy. We went and there was a ladies' day and went to play some like a charity game, and there was like 100 ladies in the stand. I would say cheering us on, but that's rubbish. I don't think any of them watched the football. They were all hammered on Prosecco.
Including lovely Carol Innes. I imagine Carol would have been there.
Carol was there. Carol's the centre of attraction, obviously.
daughter of former Rothes keeper Ali Parker, of course.
Yeah. Lovely girl, Carol. I know her and Mike. I go to, I used to, until this happened, got a lot of gigs, and her and Mike they like their music gigs as well.
Yeah.
I meet her a lot, Ken. So yeah, lovely girl, Carol.
Good stuff. Well, that's a mention for Carol tonight. Tommy, It's a delight to see you in the show, and I'm looking forward to going into some of the stories we've had over the years together.
Yeah, sure.
Our second guest is yet another product of Elgin Boys Club, who went down to see service with Elgin City, Devonvale, Bucky Thistle, Forest Mechanics and Lossiemouth. As a youngster, Stephen Rattray played for a number of Aberdeen juvenile sides, whilst at the same time turning out for the Elgin City youth team. However, his first Highland League club as a senior player was Devonvale, for whom he signed in 1993 and where he picked up an Aberdeenshire Shield winners' medal before heading off to college soccer in the USA in 1997. Stephen returned home in 1999 when he put pen to paper for Bucky Thistle. In 2002, Alec Caldwell took Stephen to Elgin City, but after only 1 season, Stephen returned to the Highland League with Forest Mechanics. Stephen also had spells with Huntly and Lossiemouth before finally hanging up his boots in 2007, and he enjoyed a brief spell in management with ambitious junior club Dufftown in 2012. Rats, as he is affectionately known in football circles, is a whiz-kid with social media and IT gadgetry and the likes, and was instrumental in starting up the Highland Football League HFL Hub, which is popular with Highland League fans the world over. Welcome to Northern Lights, Stephen Rattray.
How's it going, Martin?
Good to see you,
You missed,
Stephen.
you missed a couple of bits there. Tommy Madden finished my career.
Ah.
That was the bit. John Teasdale started it, Tommy Madden finished it.
Ah, well, there you go. There's always a link. There's always a link. You're looking well anyway.
Cheers.
Of
Yourself.
course, Stephen comes tonight by royal appointment. He's got royal connections, you know, Martin.
Oh, I didn't ken that now.
Yeah, he went down very well with the Queen of the Jungle, Christine Hamilton, in Aberdeen one night.
Well,
She thought he looked exceedingly resplendent in his kilt that night. He was doing a wee talk at the Devon Vale dinner, and Christine was the main speaker. And he had the delight to sit next to Christine Hamilton and her husband Neil all night. That was some night, Stevie, wasn't it?
Yeah, neither of us had underwear on. We found that out.
Well, you said that. I would never have gone there.
I wouldn't have gone there either, Dave. Yeah, but that's where it went.
Good stuff, Stephen. Of course, you live in the metropolis of Urquhart, the same place as Colin Keir.
Yeah, I see Colin quite a lot. He's out walking the dog. We have a bit of a chat about his Keith days now and again and Scottish Cup reminiscences, so it's good. He's still looking fit. He's still moving well.
Yeah. And you must be missing football probably more than most, Stephen.
Well, there's a yes and a no to that. Obviously, I've done the reporting side of things with yourself, and there's the involvement, but we are now at Keith under 13s, my wee lads there, and we've been back training for, I think it's 5-6 weeks now, within the guidelines, because we've got enough coaches and we own our own bit of ground, so the little bubbles of 10's been going on, so it's been great to be back and out on the pitch.
Good. Nice to see you wearing a Scotland strip tonight, Stevie.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Stevie Rattray.
Cheers.
our third and final guest this week can count himself as yet another player who came through the legendary Innes MacDonald stable. John Teasdale too was a product of Elgin Boys Club, and he broke into the Highland League with Nairn County in the late 1970s. In 1979, John Barnwell signed John for Wolverhampton Wanderers, who actually lifted the League Cup in front of 100,000 fans at Wembley that year. John remained at Molyneux until 1982, after which he had spells with Walsall, Hereford United, Willenhall Town and Blackpool. In 1985, John swapped the Blackpool Illuminations for the Bright Lights of LA, where he would continue to don his boots along with some very famous teammates. In 1989, John was back home playing for Pelly Patterson's league-winning Elgin City side. And after Patterson's departure in 1991, John took over the hot seat for 2 seasons, which ended in fairly well-documented circumstances. John started his playing career with short spells at East Stirlingshire and Rothes, before returning to the USA, only to return briefly in 2010 as manager of Huntly. We are delighted that John has joined us live all the way from California. Welcome to the show, John Teasdale.
Hey, how are you, buddy?
How you doing, John? You're looking
I'm good.
exceptionally well.
Well, I've got a bit of extra beef on me right now that I could do without.
I think we can all say that, to be quite honest. Somebody was making a comment about the beard, and I says, well, I weighed myself before I started growing a beard, and I weighed myself last week, and I've come to the conclusion that this weighs about 2.5 stone.
John, good evening. Nice to see you, my friend.
Davey, how you doing, my old pal?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Is life in America still you're still enjoying it?
Oh, I love it here. I've always loved America, man. And yeah, I love it here. It's just unfortunate that we're going through the disaster that we're going through right now, you know.
Yeah. Tough times in the States, John.
It's very tough. It's very tough. I've actually, I got furloughed about 5 months ago, and there's millions of people lost their jobs, been furloughed or laid off, and personally, I don't see it coming back for, I don't see things changing for at least a year and a half, 2 years, you know.
Mm-hmm. In the introduction, Martin mentioned Innes MacDonald. I knew Mark as well. He was a great man. He was a tough taskmaster. But of course, where Innes MacDonald went, there was also a little man went with him called George Welsh. And I met George last year. He's about 93 or 94 now, and still looking fit as a fiddle.
Oh, I love wee George. brilliant. Lee George is a fantastic human being, you know.
Yeah.
And it was great, fantastic being with Mac and George. You know, it really was. It was for me anyway at that time, which I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go along. You know.
Okay, John, it's a delight to see you, and welcome to Northern Lights.
Thank you, Davey.
So how's Dave keeping? All right?
I'm fine, Martin. I didn't
Aye.
play golf today. I'm feeling really good.
Actually, looking a bit fresh. Bit fresher. You didn't seem to have had the same rush to get back to the Fordyce studio.
We made it quite easily today. I was weeding my garden.
Viewing numbers, Dave, we have broken the 15,000 mark.
That's quite remarkable, Martin, isn't it?
So
Quite
we're
remarkable.
just over 900 per show. I can will labour it from week to week, but we keep saying the same thing. We only expected to get 30 or 40 folk a week. So we're delighted with that. What have you got in the way of shout-outs for us this week?
Yeah, well, not surprisingly, one of our old favourites, Martin Stewart, he got the answer to our question last week. We'll give a big shout again to Tommy's pal, Carol Innes. So, yeah, it was a tough one last week. Martin was the only one I think who got it. You know, the answer to the question was there were two brothers, and they came from a different sport. They didn't come from football, but in the late 60s and the early 70s, they starred for two rival clubs. They both played for the same clubs. I wonder if any of you guys would know this. The two brothers, they came from the village of Canusi. The sport they came from was shinty, and they were called Bobby and Freddie Neild. And Bobby passed away last year, sadly.
A lot of blank faces there, Dave.
Yeah, the Neild brothers, the super players, tremendous players. They were with Inverness Thistle, and they made their name really with Cali as part of the great Cali team with goalkeeper Kenny McKenzie and Alan Presley and Davy Johnson and that era, and two great players.
Great stuff, Dave. I've got a wee shout out this week. It's for the first time we're going to be doing a little advert. I've got a flyer here that I received just yesterday from Alzheimer's Scotland, who we are in partnership, obviously, with the programme, Alzheimer's Scotland and Football Memories Scotland. And they've got a wee fundraiser on Wednesday, the 2nd of September. Obviously, if it had been a Sunday night, I would have been telling you about it, because that would divert fans away from your show. But it's Wednesday, the 2nd of September, 7:30 until 9 p.m. And they're doing a virtual audience with Tam Cowan, Barry Ferguson, and Alan Ruff. And you can get your ticket for £10, and you can sit in the luxury of your own home and participate in the programme. You can also send in questions for the panel in advance. But once again, at the bottom of the screen, it'll come up with the website for Alzheimer's Scotland. And probably the easiest way to get the details is if you go into the website and there's a wee search box. If you type in Tam Cowan, that'll take you to the link. As it's £10, and it's on Wednesday, the 2nd of September, 7:30 to 9 p.m. You can put in, there's details of how you can get your questions in advance, and it's money is being raised for Alzheimer's Scotland Action on Dementia, a great cause.
Brilliant. One more shout out, Martin. A young man was 65 years old today, someone we all know. It's the man that married me. Now, there you go. It sounds a bit bad, that, but it was a man.
Well, I never knew you married a man, Dave, but there you go.
The man I officiated at my wedding ceremony, shall we say. And we all know him as Keith legend Charlie Simpson. Charlie's 65 today. He's also the registrar for Murray, and he married me quite a few years ago now to my wife, Yvonne.
Well, that's fantastic news, because Charlie's a regular contributor on loads of social things, and he's come to social media very late in life, I have to say. That's one of the positives that have come out of lockdown. And he's also very helpful to me, because from time to time I need a wee bit of assistance for some information, etc., for this programme. And Charlie's always at hand. Maybe sometimes he needs to get a wee nudge for his wife, but he comes up with the goods 9 times out of 10. So happy birthday, Charlie.
65 today. On this day, Martin,
yes, on this day,
1986, Keith centre half Paul Wisely was fighting an injury, a mysterious hip injury, keeping the key thread going there. Paul Wisely, I remember Paul Wisely, a decent player.
Paul was a suspect of quite a few clubs, was he not, at one point? Was Hibs not one of the clubs that, were Hibs not one of the clubs that were interested in him at one time? But he came to fruition quite late on in his years, did he not?
Yeah, I think that's right. He was a fairly decent player indeed, but as I say, at that time he was fighting to be fit for the next round of the League Cup, and there had been fixtures in the League Cup. Shall I give you the scores that day?
Come on, let's hear you.
League Cup first round, Brora Rangers 2, Fort William 1. Buckie Thistle 3, Cove Rangers 1. Caledonian 5, Nairn County 1. Clachnacudden 1, Ross County 1. Devonville 0, Rothes 2.
Ja.
Inverness Thistle 2, Forest Mechanics 1. Lossiemouth 0, Huntly 2. Finally, Peterhead 2, Keith 1. So that was the fixtures in the first round of the League Cup way back in 1986.
And I can reveal Tommy Madden got the nil.
I got the nil, yeah.
Back to you, Martin.
Tommy.
He did well that day then.
Well, actually, I can actually reveal, Tommy, you didn't start that day because we checked.
I can't remember it. I can't remember if I had from a breakfast, man.
Tommy, I'm hoping you do remember some stuff for us, because I'm going to take you right back. You're a Tory loon.
Yeah.
You must have played juvenile football in Aberdeen when you were a youngster.
Yeah. I probably when I was about 17, 18, I actually started off playing for a club called Charlton Rovers, which is now, you would call it now Cove Rangers. And at that time, Alan McRae was a sponge man.
Whatever happened to him?
Yes, exactly. He's come a long way. Alan McRae, I remember it quite. I mean, he was basically on the committee. The manager was Dennis Notman. Who else was there? Tom Cummins. He was there as well. I can remember Tom. He was Cove's first manager. And Alan, like I say, was a spun. But I remember, I can't remember, we played some team for Stirling. And Alan he's been on edge the whole game. And he's sitting with his sponge and his bucket of water at the side, dying to get on. And Davy Gabriel got clattered in a halfway line. So Alan runs on, he's giving him a sponge down the line. And as he's going off, the centre half said something to Alan, aye, not very nice. To wit, Alan stuck the head in the guys who walked past him.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes. And then he jumped onto the dugout roof and just sat there with his bucket of water as though nothing was going to happen. And we got expelled for the competition because of that. So you can bring it up with him next time you see him.
So, juvenile football, Charlton Rovers, and then you joined Aberdeen East End. What a great wee club that is.
Yeah, I actually went to Shamrock, which is it was a juvenile club, under 23s it was at the time. They were a great side, but I went for them to East End, and Ian Esselman was a coach there, and a really, really young side, really young. We were all 20, 19, 20, 21, Ken, really young, but we just seemed to gel, and we actually won the league that year, the junior league that year. We did. We really, really enjoyed one. There's a lot of good players on that side.
So,
really good.
What sort of players? Anybody we would know, Tommy?
Yeah. Well, David Kemp was there for about 25 years. You heard of Forbes, right? Forbes is basically, well, obviously R.I.P. Forbes passed away a couple of years ago. His brother Alec used to play for St Johnstone in Montrose.
Okay.
Forbes is a really lovely, great player. Sean Beattie, goalkeeper. And then Mike Fawcett, he was a forward, great goal scorer. And I actually played in midfield behind Mike at that time. And that's how I come to go to Lossie. They actually came to watch us. And it was Kevin and Johnny Fitzsimmons.
Okay.
And they came to watch us in a game, and we were playing the Cabber for Elgin. And we drew with them at home, and we had to come up here, but the Cabber didn't have their own pitch. Enclosed.
Yeah.
So they put us to Burghead.
As you did, that
As you
seemed
do,
to be the
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Let's go to the Burghead pitch, boys, right? So, but anyway, the guy at the first game, our left back Norman broke his leg. So Ian Esserman pulled me up at the gate. He says, "Would like you to fill in," because I was the only one with a left peg. I'm like, "What, left back? I never played left back in my life." So I was a wee bit nervy, but okay, fair enough. And they actually came to watch Mike Fawcett, and I just thought I had a steamer of a game playing the left back, and they just said to me, "Oh," and then they come in and sent I think the club asking me to come up and have a look. Oh, I can see if I get a trial with him. Now come up at Lossy, so they did say, "Oh, Lossy's coming behind." I went, "Who?"
but it's go back to East End.
Yeah,
really well run club. Really well
Fabulous.
run club.
Great ground,
organised.
marvellous ground down at the beach. South Pittodrie is just
For those of you who are watching, didn't know where they're based, you're more than likely, if you've been to Pittodrie, you've probably parked in their car park at some point.
absolutely.
Or behind it used to be, I think it was the blind school. So a lot of people would park there and then walk across the pitch to get.
We had a few of the blind school folk in our committee.
But no, a great wee club. My first game ever there was actually, I'd done an 11th hour favour for Jack Whitehead.
Oh, Jack, good.
And Jack had said, "I'll tell you what, son," he says, "I'll reward you. I'll make sure you get a Scottish Junior Cup tie, but nae in Murrayshire," which was unusual because for some reason the Scottish FA thought the road from Murrayshire was a lot further than it was to Murrayshire. So
Yeah.
so he was true to his word. I got a Scottish Cup tie, which I was all excited when the envelope came in and opened up, and I got East End versus Inch.
Oh, aye, nice one.
So it was a Scottish Cup tie. Tommy, we'll speak about your time at Lossy in a wee while, but
Yeah,
thanks
sure.
for giving us a wee bit of insight to juvenile football, and we'll probably be getting a lawsuit for Alan McRae. He's probably
Oh, aye.
typing it as we speak. Over to you, Dave.
Thanks for that, Martin. Stephen, I'm looking at your early career, and it mirrors mine to a degree. Elgin Boys Club, Elgin City Youths, Aberdeen Juveniles. Had a shot at all of them, but not foreign trips. The furthest I got with Elgin Boys Club was East Kilbride. So, but you did have foreign trips, didn't you?
Well, if you call England foreign,
Yeah, of
JT
course.
might have had foreign trips.
Yeah.
But for me, it was to Bracknell on that one. So under 12 age group of Bracknell team came up, and typical Elgin boys approach to things. The parents shared the lads as they come up. So the lads came up, they came up on the train, separated out to each house, stayed. We played a couple of games against them, and they went down, and then that was reciprocated a couple of years later, where the squad, about 16 of us, put on our bright blue blazers that you might remember were made straight from the sheep, all the way down the train to London, right across the London Underground, carrying bags that were like about the size of ourselves, almost Tiger having to get in a scrap because somebody started on Paul Menzies going down one of the things, but the whole lot of us in these bright blue blazers went across the Bracknell, and again, lovely trip, great time. It was quite a successful trip for us as well. Other than that, it was Edinburgh tournament to play the likes of Dundee United, or Tynecastle tournament to play the likes of Dundee United, Motherwell Hearts, which was a great experience as well.
Mm-hmm. Some amazingly enthusiastic folk involved in the Elgin Boys Club. When I was there, it was people like Jimmy George, Jimmy Robertson, Arthur Milne, Mike Christie, people like that, and they all gave their time willingly for the local youngsters.
Mike's still there. I helped out last year as a fixture secretary and one of the coaches. And Mike goes round on his Motability scooter at the end of the game and gets all the scores and the scorers from the various games written down, and you get to go in at the end and write who the man of the match was. So he's still a stalwart there. He's down there fixing the pitches and things like that. And obviously his son Craig's been a great reporter for a number of years, so a good friend of both ours.
Right. He was a great goalkeeper for Burghead Thistle for decades, Mike, forever, it seems to be. I remember playing against Mike, and he was a good keeper.
Was he?
Before your time.
Before my time, but I mean, like so myself and John will always have known Mike as a character around Elgin, with his little knick-knack shop off the the side of the
The
close.
Lido.
I mean, he's always been a great lad, and you always got a good bit of crack with him when you were going in there. But from my era, the likes of Alec Carson, the referee, is one who will be well known to anyone of that area, that age group in Elgin and Murray. But Douglas Cameron and Tiger Porter, who obviously is still on the go, doing well at the Boys League. I think he's the president now, but has basically held together youth football in Elgin for the best part of 30 years.
Yeah, and of course it was Dougie Cameron's dad, John Cameron, that started the whole thing.
Aye, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Elgin City Youth, Stephen, did you enjoy that?
Loved it. It was at the end of the Elgin Boys Club, a lot of people fell away, and the Elgin City Youth was the start of that, where Bill Cormie took us up to play in the under-16s, to train the under-18s. And at that time, Rab Adamson and Tiger were the under-18 coaches. The under-18 team was really strong. Martin Stewart will have mentioned how they went down and played Morton and then played Dundee United. The following season, the majority of that team was still there. I was in the under-16s, but Bill Cormie's stepbrother Alan had a little falling out with Rab Adamson, which he probably wasn't the only one. Rab used to go purple at half-time. It was half-time team talks. And I got called up in from the 16s to play for the 18s up at Ross County in the first game. And within 2-3 months, the advancement of training with Tats and JT physically made a big difference. And I was soon training with the first team Monday youth team at Elgin. So the season that many people have talked about, the likes of the 92-93 season that John was in charge, and a wonderful year to be a part of Elgin City. Had the pleasure of training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at Borough Briggs, twice a week with John and Tats, and twice a week with Rab and Tiger. So great times. And you know, the very few people pick up on the charisma John had around the dressing room at that time. It was, as much as they talk about all the title nowadays, the quality on the pitch, the camaraderie in that dressing room is superb, and I'm hoping he'll give us a wet song or two towards the end of the show.
Well, keep your powder dry on that one. And of course, we sojourn into Aberdeen Juvenile football. I had a couple of games for Banks of DA. Who was it you played for, Stephen?
I started off at Dice. Scotty Cameron, who was up at Dufton, who obviously Martin will know well, he went through and started playing for Dice. They were looking for a sweeper, so I went through there, played in the Aberdeen Football Festival, which was entertaining. And then came the youth for a year alongside the likes of Kenny Cool and Chrissy Stewart, where me and Chrissy Stewart actually sat and watched a 20-man brawl in one of the occasions. In the 89th minute, game had ticked along, 2-0, nothing happening, but there was some beef between folk, Northfield area, and next thing you know, it was just, here's us chuchters sitting at the side watching. And then the year after that, Devon side had Mark Simpson and Stuart Glennie went full time. So we plugged the gap in the back there alongside Derek Milne, Craig Stewart, and perennial substitute Ian Murray.
There you go. Oh well, we will venture forth into the beginning of your Highland League career at Vale very soon. But for the moment, Stevie, thank you for that.
Yeah, cheers.
I just had a wee note here. I had to make a note. Mike Christie had a knick-knack shop. That's not what it was known as, but we'll settle for knick-knack shop. You would then see him about something completely different. You end up coming away buying something that you didn't want.
He's a hint of the arc right about him.
That's John. How great to see you. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on the show.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that. I'm trying to think the first time that we probably met was maybe the first time I think you had a wee cameo appearance for Lossiemouth at Telford Street against Cali. I think, I don't know if you've been home for a holiday or a break or whatever. But Charlie Christie had not long returned to Cali from Celtic at the time. So I do remember it. Because I thought, what's the chances of getting John Teasdale and Charlie Christie on the park at the same time? It was an occasion for me anyway. John, obviously known your family for a long, long time, but I was just a bairn when you were breaking out in your career. But you too came through the famous Elgin Boys Club, did you not?
I did. It was just fantastic, for a wee boy in Elgin, as Stevie's just said. It's the excitement and the thrill of playing in the boys' league and just registering and hoping and praying that you get in, and it was just magical times. It really was. There we go. And it was
spot the professional journalist amongst us guys.
He heard you did karaoke, John.
Is that your boy telling him the pudding's ready?
You've missed your tea time at Duff House Royal, Dave. That's what it is. Aye, sorry, John. We do digress.
It sounds like it's a Mexican pudding, but it sounds like. Yeah, it was just magic as a kid. It really was. It was. You had your school football and you had your boys' league football, and it was full of great characters, and Stevie's just said, Mike Christie. I love Mike Christie. Mike was just a character. Always got a smile on his face. And let me tell you, if he never had a smile on his face, you didn't want to be around him because something bad was happening, And it was just so many great. I think Kevin Will's father, Dougie, God bless him, God rest his soul. I think Dougie was one of the coaches. He was one of my coaches one year. And I cannot remember this gentleman's name, but we used to call him Beaky. And he used to always say, "Mon the Royals, Mon the Royals," Obviously, he coached the Royals. So there were so many characters, but the quality back then was absolutely fantastic. Every team had 3 or 4 quality players, whether they were, I remember in my day, Gordon Robertson, Neil Fifey coming from down your way. It was a lot of great players. We had players coming from Keith, from Bucky, from Forrest, as the boy Roger. Remember, he was just a couple of years ahead of me. Graham Roger, just a beast. I mean, he'd run through a brick wall.
Would the likes of Kenny Wales been there at that
Kenny
time?
Wales, yeah, there was a lot of boys came from out and around Elgin and that. So, and it was just magical times, and it was the best. I tell people now, I said, listen, I had an amazing upbringing. I had a great upbringing. I never had nothing. We didn't have much, when we were that young. But you could, if you weren't playing, you would go down to Morriston just to watch the other games. And you'd kick a ball on the way down. There would be a couple of games going on at the side of the pitches as well. So, and I've always told people this, I didn't become a professional football player at 18-year-old. I became a professional football player at 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old when I was kicking a ball, and I was every day and every night, it was the desire and the hunger and watching other players. And I watched the players who were in the seniors when I was, when I was 9 and 10, I would watch the 14s and 15s, and I'd watch some of them players, and I'm like, oh God, he's good, look. And I watched what they would do, and then I would go try it myself, So I picked up a lot from the boys' league, a hell of a lot.
And Elgin Academy itself obviously produced a lot of great players, and obviously I include you in that category. John Clayton?
Oh, Big Clates. I mean, Big man was different class, out and out goal scorer, The funny story about Clayton. So I was at Blackpool and Clayton was at Tranmere. So no, it was before I went to Blackpool. So I got a call from somebody asking me if I would go down to Tranmere for a trial, you know. And I said, yeah, no problem. So I go in, and I actually didn't even know that Clayton was at Tranmere. I had no idea. And I walk in the changing rooms, and John's sitting there in the corner, and he looks at me and he goes, oh, John, I goes, John, how you doing? He goes, what are you doing here? I said, I've come down for a week's trial. I said, the manager went, he went, you don't want to come here, man. It's brutal. It's murder. He said, it's brutal, man. It's murder. And the training was murder, to be honest with you. It was like brutal. And then about 2 days later, I got a phone call asking me if I'd go to Blackpool, you know. And then about 6 weeks later, we ended up playing against each other. And was playing against Tranmere. And there's a corner for us. So I'm up there. And all of a sudden, as the crowd goes, I don't know, it was about 1,500, 2,000 at the game. And the crowd kind of goes quiet. And went, oh, here is Teasdale, Clayton. And I looks behind the goal, and there was a guy, a young guy, Hughie Meekin. A lot of guys know Hughie, you know. He was actually living in that way, and he was like, Teasdale, Clayton. Me and John were all laughing, you know.
Can't go nowhere. Obviously, no. the common denominator at Elgin Academy has got to be Innes MacDonald, and he had a rich vein of talent round about him at the academy, and it was little wonder that obviously he encouraged you to make the trip along to Nairn County as many had done before you.
Well, you know, Mac, in my opinion, if he'd been at the pro level, he would have been a huge success. You know, in all the managers I've played under, all the dressing rooms I've sat in, he's nearly probably as good a manager, if not better, than 90%. His football knowledge was second to none. He could spot a player in a heartbeat. And the funny thing is, you know, I was 14-year-old, and they asked me to sign S forms at Elgin City. John Dixon was the manager. And 2 days later, I'm at the academy, and Mac pulls me aside, and he's like, you know, he always used to speak to me like this: Teasdale, come into my office. And I'm like, oh God, what have I done, you know? So I walk in his office, he goes, Teasdale, you have a wee bit of talent about you, boy. He said, I'm going to do you a huge favour. He said, I'm going to bring you to Nairn County on an S form. And I went, oh, okay. I said, well, actually, I'm signing for Elgin City on an S form. Huge mistake, Teasdale. Huge mistake. and I said, well, they asked me, and you know, he looked at me and went, have a think about it. And he says, out you go. So I go out, and I signed for Elgin. You know, he never spoke to me for about 6 months. Never, even when our class was at his PE, he would say, hey, Lumsden, tell Teasdale to go and do that. Hey, Smith, tell Teasdale to go and do that, you know. I swear to God, that's what happened. He never spoke to me for about 6 months. And I was at schoolboy at Elgin, and then, you know, it just wasn't working. Ali Shewan, John Dixon left, Ali Shewan took over. I was 15. I was back then. I was thinking I was better than what I was, and I was wishing, you know, how am I not getting a chance with the first team and that, you know. And I don't even know if I'd turned 16 yet. It was close to it. And I said, oh, I want to leave. So I went to Mac and I said, hey, Mac, can I come to Nairn County? And he looked at me and he went, I'll think about it. So I got my clearance from Elgin, and that's what happened. And I went through and signed for Mac, and it was the best thing I ever done as a youngster. It really was. It was the man was absolutely brilliant, fantastic.
John, a lot of people say his techniques were way ahead of his time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you know, with Mac, everything was positive. And a lot of my stuff when I coach and I train, it's like, it's all about attacking. It's all about attacking, and it's all about getting the ball to the guy in the best position, you know, and confidence. I mean, the confidence he would give you is unbelievable. He'd give you, you know, he didn't even need to scream and shout at you. He's one of them guys, you just knew when you messed up and you felt bad, and you felt like you were letting them down, you know, but he'd just give you that look, and he'd just give you that look, and that look was enough, you know, but he did go off a couple of times, you know. The funny story was it's another one, you know, I was playing away, training hard, and wasn't getting a chance. So I used to go back and forth to training with the Robertson twins, you know, and they were two characters, you know, and Ian Davidson. So we come back, and I didn't get a chance. I was 16 by now, and I wasn't getting a chance for them. So we go in the City Bar in Elgin, and I have a few drinks with these guys, and I get drunk, right? So the brave me, I calls up Mac, and my exact words, I'll never forget to this day. I said, Mac, and he's like, what is it, Teasdale? I goes, you don't think I'm any good? You can stick your team up your arse. And he went like that. He went, you're drunk, Teasdale, good night. And he hung the phone up.
But you did get...
I was too embarrassed to go back, so I didn't go to training for like 2 weeks. And then it was a Tuesday, I was lying on the couch, and knocking the door. My mom came through, she says, oh, John, you better go to the door. I said, how? She says, it's Mr. McDonald. I said, oh, Jesus. So I go to the door, and he goes, where's your training gear? And I went, it's up the stairs. Get it, let's go. I went upstairs, got my stuff, and went back to training.
Well, you obviously got your chance, John, and it wasn't long before you were attracting a bit of attention. Who all came knocking on your door at that time?
Well, there was just all different rumours, you know, about Sunderland, Middlesbrough. I don't know. I don't even know if this is true, but the rumour was that somebody from John Gregg, I think it was, from Rangers, called Mr. Tedcastle, and the first thing they seemingly asked him was, "We hear the boys are Roman Catholic. Is that true?" You know. Seemingly that's what it was said, you know. But my uncle was married to a lady from Wolverhampton, so my uncle happened to write a letter into the chief scout in Wolverhampton at Wolves, and just said to have a look. So they contacted, and then asked me to come down for a trial, and I went down on trial. They played I'll never forget, played a friendly against a team called Hensford. We beat them 3-1. I scored all 3 goals. So, I mean, you couldn't have a better trial than that. And that was that. But the people at Nairn County were just absolutely brilliant. For everybody throughout the club, it was one of them teams that just, they made you feel welcome from the very first day. And my mum and dad and all my family, they made everybody feel welcome. And just fantastic. It really was. It was a smashing club.
Well, you mentioned your mum, Rena, there. I can remember coming across to your mum and dad's house in Campton in their living room with Johnny Cowie, who was the Rothes manager at the time. I was a club secretary, and we tried for the best part of maybe an hour to persuade Michael to come along to Rothes. He was playing for Caberfay at the time. But I also worked with your brother Mark, and he was a very good footballer, but he chose a different career path altogether. But I'm quite certain, although he played junior football, I'm quite certain he could have played at a higher level. And of course, the dynasty doesn't stop there, because your cousins, am I correct in saying, are the McGettricks. It's another legendary name in Elgin, and you've got Frank and John, and I'm trying to remember, there's a McGettrick down near me in Ellen who took up the refereeing.
That was my Uncle Johnny.
Yeah.
My Uncle Johnny, he was a good player. And then there was Frank, and there was Alec.
Yes. Yeah.
Alec played a lot for Bucky Rovers, I think. You know. Correct. And Burkhead. And see, there's the thing as well. People see the difference between now, and this is what I tell people, all this thing where young boys, 13-year-old, 12, 13, 14, they're only playing against their own age group, all the way up to whatever age, right? I played for Birkhead Anchors when I was 13 years old, right? The one guy threatened, he said, you come near me, Teasdale, I'm going to break your leg. You know, I was 13 years old. This was a grown man, a 27, 28-year-old. Huge he was. But that's where I learned a hell of a lot. I learned how to ride a tackle. I learned my awareness, you know, and stuff. These kids are not getting that nowadays. They don't get that. They don't get any of that. They're missing. I'm sure Tommy will tell you, and Steve will, because Stevie will know. I mean, Stevie was 16-year-old when I had him, you know, and he was getting lumps kicked out of him by Ian MacArthur and Chico and these guys, you know. But this is where you learn. Nowadays, these guys are not touching a grown man until they're maybe 18, 19-year-old. It's too late.
Yep. Certainly, without a doubt, there is a Teasdale McGettrick dynasty going on in Elgin. It's certainly in the bloodline as football. I'm going to take you back.
Can I cut in?
Yep.
Just to say, Alec McGettrick, I actually play on a Monday night in the six-a-sides for Alec's team. So Alec was my first boys league manager, and he now manages me and a bunch of old diddies playing in the six-a-side on the Monday night. But he's also the under-15 manager at Forest Mechanics now.
Brilliant.
Alec,
well, big shout out to Alec.
Alec actually went, he was doing a trial in Man United for a week when he was like 16. Alec was one of them players, he had unbelievable pace and strength, and he'd go past 6 players and then he'd kick the ball into the corner flag. You know what I mean? he would do amazing stuff, and then you were just like, God, how did he manage that? You know.
John, when you arrived at Molyneux, you're just a young lad, but that was the season they got themselves into the League Cup final.
No, actually, it was the season after. They'd won the League Cup. They won the League Cup earlier that year.
Yeah.
So I think I signed in the October or the November. Okay. So it was the season, same year, but season after.
Okay. So they'd beaten Forest, Nottingham Forest in the final. Obviously, there was a huge aura about the club at the time. Tell us about some of your, I'm not going to say teammates, but the first team squad that was there at that time. Give us some names.
Oh, man. Andy Gray, Emlyn Hughes, Willie Carr, Kenny Hibbett, you know, John Richards. I mean, there was some quality, but there was guys coming towards the end of their careers as well. But still quality, you know. I
can remember from the time at 9 times out of 10, if there was a reference to John Teasdale in the papers in the North, it was always Andy Gray understudy John Teasdale. It seemed to be the two of you seemed to be joined at the hip as far as the media were concerned up north. Yeah, in a few nightclubs as well, you know. So what I'm really getting at is you've got to have an Andy Gray story for us. Oh Jesus, Andy! There's a few about Andy. I mean, Andy had a presence about him that was, you know, women loved Andy. Women loved Andy. So when you went out with Andy, there was always plenty of lovely young ladies around, you know. And Emlyn Hughes was the same. Emlyn Hughes was unbelievable. I've never seen women flock to a football player in my life like Emlyn Hughes. He had that smile. Everybody thought he was the nicest guy in the world. As it turns out, he was a horrible piece of garbage, to be honest with you. But, you know, Andy, so me and Andy go, we're in Birmingham, we're at Liberty's nightclub in Birmingham. And so Andy ends up, now Andy had a girlfriend, Jan, beautiful, model she was, beautiful she was. And Andy lived out in the countryside, just outside Wolverhampton. But his house had been broken into 4 or 5 times because he was hardly ever there, you know. So we ended up, we're in the car. It's no word I lie. We drive back from Birmingham. Andy's steaming. I mean, he's steaming. I'm in the back seat. This bird's in the front seat. This Chicky's way. The police pulled us over. And
they put Andy in the driver's seat and they drove us home, pretty much. Right? Because they knew Andy getting tickets for the game and that. And we get there. He goes, I go in the spare room. Andy goes with his bird. And I don't know, I must be sound asleep. Next thing I know, it's just this almighty racket and screaming and shouting. And the first thing I think is, oh, fuck, his house, oh, excuse my French, his house has been broken into again. Oh, shit. So I dived under the bed, you know, because the last time the guys had guns, you know. So I'm hiding under the bed at the side of the bed. And I wait till it all dies down. So I must have been there about an hour, honestly. So next thing, so I go, oh, it's all quiet, so go back to my bed, no problem. So I get up in the morning, I go down the stairs, and Andy says, hey, did you hear that, right? I says, oh shit, Andy, what was it? What was? And he says, he says, it was Jan, my girlfriend. He said, she came in, she caught me in bed with a chick, you know. I was like, oh my God, Jesus. He said, when you see her, don't mention nothing. I thought, oh God. I said, Andy, of course I'll not mention anything. I'm thinking, I'm never going to probably not see Jan again after that. 2 minutes later, Jan walks down the stairs, you know. And I'm looking, I'm going, so she's come home, she's got Andy in the bed, in the middle of the action with the other bird. And she's ended up, Andy's called his bird for Birmingham up to come home, pick the bird up, drive her back to Birmingham, and she stayed the night. And I went, all right, so that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Andy was, I'll tell you another quick funny thing about Andy. His wife at the time, she's a lovely, lovely woman, but she liked to smoke a bit of weed. So she baked Andy a birthday cake. We were playing Manchester City up at Main Road. She baked this birthday cake, and it was for herself, but she put a lot of weed in it. But she didn't tell Andy. And Andy had a big slice of this birthday cake on the morning before going to Main Road. And I'm telling you, this is no word to lie. If you can see the video of that game, Andy was jumping up in the air and everything to head balls that were nowhere near him. I'm telling you. John, I'm telling you, it wasn't until after we found out that she put the weed in the birthday cake.
Brilliant stuff, John. I'm sure you've got lots more stories to tell us. For now, thanks very much. Back to you, Dave Edwards.
Tommy, I'm sure nothing like that happened at Grant Park in your 7 years career with Lottie Mount.
Never. The nearest we got to that would have been me and Drew Ross in a fog before a game kicked off to the side, toilets at the side.
Drew Ross got spoken about last week as well. It was a good little striker, wasn't he?
Oh, he's a great lad. That was it was him. It was Drew that used to, when I first signed there, I used to go up on my own. So I used to take a train up, and Drew would pick me up to the train station, take me back, and he had a flat above the Vic pub. His old man had the Vic. So I would go in there about, I'd say at 11 o'clock in the morning, we're playing whoever, and Drew would pick me up, we'll go up for a bacon roll and that. And Angus was in there, and Bruno, if you know, John will know who I'm talking about, right? Bruno and Angus are both still in the flat, kid, and they're obviously hammered for the night before. So I try to mark bacon rolls and fire alarms going off, and I'm like, what am I into here? I'm supposed to be playing football. Look at the shambles of this. So they would sit at the window of the Vic with the window open, looking up the high street. And I was sitting there, and Angus said, look, here's him. And I'm like, here's who? Look down there. And there's a guy in an Elgin blazer walking up and down the street and getting up and coming back again. And then getting up and coming. And I said, who's that? He says, Chico McCarthy. And I'm like, what is he doing? He says, he just walks up and down the street with his Elgin blazer on for about an hour before the game. I've never seen nothing like it, but I come to love Chico. I still love him, but he lives here. And I come to love Chico. I thought, for me, that was Chico's pride. His complete pride in playing for Elgin City. That he used to take an hour before the game and just walk up to the high street, talking to everyone with his blazer and his slacks. Now, it was great. Great times.
He's some guy is Chico.
He's a lovely lad.
He was probably kicking people.
Was that Stevie?
He was probably kicking people all the way up the street and all the way back down the street.
Brilliant. So, 1985-86, that's your first season at Lossiemouth. Who were the characters there at that time, Tom?
Oh, the team. Wow. Hammy Suter played. What was there? Drew Ross, Stevie Q, Normie Killis, Scone. This is all boys that Elgin boys will know. Who else did it? I was nobody. Everybody was sort of local-ish. I seemed to be the first boy that had come to Aberdeen and gone to the team, which was a wee bit of a surprise to a lot of them, because they were, to be honest with you, they were crap, right? I mean, they were bottom of the league, they were getting humped, but the guys were doing a job because, unbeknownst to me, the guardian angel of Lossie, who is Charlie White, right, was looking after that club, and all the guys said to me, look, when we get paid, we just get the wages back. I'm like, what? He says, the club's in a bit of trouble, so. And I'm like, that's no problem for me. I'm not here to earn for money. He said, but just to hand our wages back. Okay? Every week, they had to give us it, then you would just hand it back in again. And then they would use it. And it was a wonderful. The biggest character of the lot would be wee Drew. There's no question about it. He showed me in Elgin, then the Saturday night came, and normally into Sunday morning, because I was supposed to get a train him on Saturday night, but most of the time I didn't get it. I landed up in places like the Wishing Well and places like that, playing cards with Pelly at a bit stupid o'clock in the morning. I'm losing my money, by the way.
Who was the Coasters manager, Tommy, at that time?
At that time it was Danny Fitzsimmons. Remember Danny?
Big Danny.
Big Danny and Kevin Williams. They were the boys that were on it. They were doing a sterling job. I mean, they were keeping a team together. And they were keeping the guys playing in the Highland League, and then Colin Keir took over for about a season or so. I think the change came when, do you remember Kit Carson, Alec?
Yep.
John will know Alec Carson.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
Wonderful man. Well, Alec's nephew or so was Alec Caldwell. And they were looking for somebody to come. And Alec, if I remember correctly, Alec had just gone to St Johnstone or Dundee or something. And he was thinking about getting back into full-time work. And he landed a post office job as a postie up here. And they got him doing. That was a big change for me. Because all of a sudden we've become superbly organised. But before we were a wee bit of, it was a wee bit of rabble now and again. A lot of talented boys, but nothing together. Alec put complete and utter, it's just the organisation. Nobody'd ever heard anybody shouting shuttle over before.
That was mentioned last week, Dave.
Yeah, so all of a sudden at training, we're getting training here, Alec, shuttle over, and I'm going, what shuttles? What are you doing shuttles? We're playing football. He used to, and he'd work the 4-4-2. Everybody, when he heard shuttle over, everybody just went like a robot, bang, 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 that way. And then that way when he heard, and it just organised it so much, you know what I mean? And it was really good. I actually got the club to the first cup final in about 40 years, maybe, something like that. In the 85-86 season, I think we landed in either a North Cup or a League Cup final against Collie at Forest's Old Park. And I've never seen a crowd like that. They actually parked the boats up early. All the guys that were at sea, they just threw anchor and come over. Oh, nah, I'm not going to walk, we're just begging. And the guys come to the game. The place was absolutely mobbed. I think we got beat 1-0 for Collie. We did. Billy Ackert miskicked the ball. I remember that completely. And I was in, I think Dunsire played at one side. I think Dunsire was at left back and I played at right back. And I can't remember who else was it. Stevie Anderson. Remember Stevie? Wonderful player, great player. Held the front together himself. Really, really good times. I think the club got. That's where the organisation came. And then he got Frazee in as his assistant, and that just moved things on to another area, another level altogether. And then Frazee came as well.
Mm-hmm. Was it pre-Ivor Perry, the keeper?
Yeah, Ivor. I managed to pick Ivor up. Excuse the pun. We were out one Friday night, which we normally aren't, but with a friendly against Hibs on a Sunday, and Frazee had said to me, "Oh, we need a goalkeeper." I can't remember if I was in goal. Was it Mark Ritchie? He was injured. "Oh, we need a goalkeeper." I'm like, "Oh, well, I'll see what I can do." And it just so happened I banged into Ivor, and I think it was Betty Burke's or somewhere like that, up in the back streets, kind of Justice Mill Lane. And we're just getting a beer, Ken, and I says, I think you do in the morning, on Sunday even. Oh, nah, you fancy a game? What are you playing? Hibs. Oh, do I? I said, oh, leave it with me. I says, and I'll be in touch. I said, because we're looking for a goalie for the game. Even, and I think he was with Sonny Bank. So I phoned Esselman. Ian Esselman was the manager. So I phoned Ian and said, look, if I ever come with us, would it be a problem? He went, well, no, because he's only helping us out. He's not signed, or he's on some sort of form, but it's not totally theirs. No, I went, oh, okay. And he came up, he played Hibs, and he was outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. I think we got beat 2-0, and it would have been about 7 if it wasn't for either. Best goalkeeper I've ever seen. Aye, playing with me. With the good question. He's a bear. Brave.
He wasn't the tallest either, Tom, was he? He wasn't the tallest either.
No, but he was agile.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, he was slim and fit and agile, and he was just superb. As I said before, the best goalkeeper I've ever seen, like playing with me. He was just fabulous. He was vocal, came at me, he was organised, and he was brave, like a lion. He would go through people, even his own team. Ask Graham Dallas. I think Graham Dallas had a big cauliflower lug for about 3 weeks after Ivor punched him and the ball at the same time.
Another character at Lossy who's still there, of course, Alan McIntosh must have been there. And his dear, sadly departed wife, Lorna.
Yeah, Lorna, yeah, wonderful people. The whole family were great to us. They've got an extended family, and Billy and Peggy was Lorna's mum and dad, and they were, the whole family seemed to be on the committee, and they just brought you in. I mean, most of the time I never got home at weekends because I was landed up at one of their houses. And that's how I found out. That's what I found out what your morning was on a Sunday. Because I got up on Sunday after the Saturday night with a head like a tin of wasps in it. And then somebody would walk in at 8:30 and go, I'm just in for my morning. And I go, morning? And all of a sudden there's a beer and a drum gets piped and at 8:30 I'm like, oh my God, what are these people doing? But it was just wonderful people, and they made us completely welcome. And then once we got a few guys together, because I think the first person that got there would have been Scotty Patterson, because I was coaching Torrey Vicks and all these young guys were coming through, and Scott Patterson, I asked him up to help us out one day, and he just loved it so much. We were playing Devon Vale, and he loved it so much, and Scott then just decided I want to stay here, so we signed him. And then Derek and Ratty got released for Dundee. So Derek stays 50 yards for me in Torrey. So we spoke to him, come up for a game, Dick. He was the same. And I think the catalyst would have been Stewarty. When Ian Stewart signed, that's when other guys are going, oh, wait a minute. Once they saw him, because for a start, nobody knew him. That's why the first season he had, he come up, he got released, and he come and he said to me, I'm coming up, I'm playing for Elgin City on Wednesday. And I went, what for? He says, well, the boss come up for a try. I said, you sign for Elgin City, I'll break your good leg before your bad one. What? I says, you're not going to them before us. The first game we play us, I'll pick you right off the park. I'm not having you sign for them. And he went and he asked Elgin for something stupid money-wise. And Elgin went, oh no, we don't think you're going to make it your first season, son, or you'll be a bit kid. And he comes and he says, I'm not signing for Elgin, or can I come up on Saturday? Absolutely. So I phoned Fraser on Friday and I said, I'm taking a guy through. I said, no, you're a manager, obviously. I give you a tip, start him. I said, don't put him in the bench, start him. I said, this guy is that good. And he went, you sure? I said, I'll tell you, trust me. He went, okay. We played Devonville again, and we beat him 2-0, and Stewarty scored both. And it was like a light that went on in people's heads when they saw him. They went, what in God's green, where has he been? And we went in, and he said to me, we're in the dressing room, and he said, I'm not signing today, Tom. I'm like, it's not a deal with me, Ian. I says, shoot my hands on you. I says, I've got you here, you put on your show, it's got to be other people. And he went a while, Fraser says to me, how are we going to get him? I says, he said he's not signing today, but we're what in Mallorca in 2 weeks to Magaluf, and he's no money for spending. I went, oh. And he went, oh, really? I says, we've all got 300 quid to spend, so if you do that, you'll be fine. I'm telling you now. So we're in a club, and Fraser says, Stuart, can I have a word? He went, aye. I said, man, you're not signing. He went, no. So away went Benhouse, and he came back about 5 minutes later with a green bit of paper waving it at me. And I thought you says you won the signing. He says, 250 quid, mate, a season. I'm like, oh, is that for how many? He said 2 seasons. I'm like, oh my God, what a bargain. But the rest of it's history, as you know. I mean, the first season he was Young Player of the Year, Highland League Player of the Year, Highland League top goal scorer, Lossiemouth Player of the Year, Supporters Player of the Year. He couldn't carry the trophies the first season he was there. He's going out the door at Lossie like this with the trophies in his hand and 2 carrier bags. It was just incredible. But he is obviously the best player I've ever played alongside. And he taught guys, even though he was young, he would teach you things. Like guys like him and John that had been full time get their things. Guys like us didn't get. And they would show you stuff. You go, are you kidding me? And you go, try it. Again, like at training, he would stand next to you and you go, right, watch this. Just concentrate and doing what you're doing. And he would lean into you with his elbow and he'd press it into your side. And within about 2 seconds, the corner kicked me and he's gone. You think he's still there because you can feel the press on your side, but he's not. He's 3 yards behind you. And you reckon he's gone because you think, what is he? And he's away. And he's just brilliant at it. And also for guys like me, he make you look good. Because he would say, if you're in trouble at the back, I played left back. If you're in trouble at the back under pressure and you want 50 years, look, if you can find the opposition fullback and put it in front of him, I'll get there. So if you're in trouble, you just look up opposition, you bang the ball up and he would just go, and he's there. And the ball would land at his feet. And everybody would go, what a bar, Tom. I'm like, thanks very much. It's not a deal with me, it was him. And he was that good. Well, I think he was. Best I've ever seen. And he obviously helped the club, and obviously his transfer helped the club no end. Because they got something like 500 quid come in and 36,000 went out.
Yeah. And I mean, Stuart was just a naturally gifted goal scorer, Tommy, wasn't he?
Absolutely. Absolutely. His first touch was superb. He could send people the wrong way with one touch.
And I don't know if he really knew how good he was.
I think he underestimated himself because they would tell him when he was at Dundee that he's too small and not quick enough. You know what I mean? So his confidence was never, he kept his inability, but his confidence was never high. But I think they, so I'm not saying drilled it out with him, but I think he must have got it a bit of dumb and let him go. I actually think he thought he was going to make it. I think he should have made it. But they kept saying, oh, you're too small, you're not going to make it, you're too small, you're not going to make it. Which is a shame because he proved everybody completely wrong. He's got to be.
Of course, Pelly took it. I think it was Pelly who took him to Cali Thistle, wasn't it? Pelly.
Yeah.
Pelly took like Ian MacArthur, Mike Teasdale,
Right.
Ian Stewart. He filled that original Cali team with a lot of top quality ex-Highland League players.
Highland League players, correct. And I think it was one of the best teams Cali ever had.
Yep.
When I see them now, half of the boys at Cali, okay, fair enough, but these boys had a passion. These boys had they had a gut feel that they wanted to do well, just because they come for the Highland League, but they were still in the Highlands, even though they were playing in the Scottish League. They were still for the Highlands, and that's a hard thing, isn't it? But
Big Mark McCritchie goal.
Yeah, these guys now didn't have that. They're not interested. It's all about this.
Yeah.
I mean, which none of us ever played for it, ever.
Yeah. Tommy, thanks for those memories. Some wonderful, wonderful recollections there. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks.
Stephen.
Yeah.
Despite your lengthy connections with Elgin City, your first senior contract was with Devonvale.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, obviously after the end of the 93 season, by that time I'd went away through to University of Aberdeen and I touched upon moving to Devon's side juveniles. At the end of that season, we still had we'd won the north section of the youth league. So we still had a playoff that was played at the start of the following season. And we'd beaten Cali, we'd beaten Ross County. We thought, we're a good team, we're going to win this. We'll easily play away against the Aberdeenshire champions, Fraserburgh. 5-0, we got slaughtered. Scotty Murray, Marino Keith, Ian Murray, Chris Hunter, basically that team that won the league, Derek Milne, the whole lot of them was in that. And things just kind of died even at the youth level quite a bit. But I had a quick look at John's team ahead of us. Craig Hinchcliffe in goals, right back Ian MacArthur, sweeper Willie Furphy, with Alan Porter coming through. And those were my positions as a sweeper right back. In front of that, if you looked at midfield, you had Mike Teasdale, Soapy Cameron, Russell Mackay. even at the best I could have been, I wasn't getting in front of any of that 5. So I recognised at that age that I wasn't going to play ahead of them. I was through playing with a good bunch of players at Devon side. The opportunity came to play Devon Vale with Brian Stewart, who was still there with Devon side. So I took that. I wasn't brave enough to tell Tiger. He had to learn for a team sheet in the Scottish Youth Cup. He seen the team sheet. I got a phone call a few days later, which I thoroughly deserved, I've got to say. And that was that. The end of that season, Kevin Bremner took over. He came down from Brora, and there was hardly any of a squad. The first few games of pre-season, 5 of us had come up from the Devon side youth team, and that made a squad of about 14 or 15. So there was always going to be the opportunity for a couple of us. Towards the end of the pre-season, Kevin came in quite late, so we didn't have that many games. I think we played Hibs, and Murray Ritchie had started at sweeper, and we're 3 or 4 down at half time. I came on at sweeper in the start of the second half, and we didn't lose a goal in the second half. We never scored one either. But I did enough in that game to sort of catch Kevin's eye. Went down, played the Inrush tournament in Wales the following week, came back up, and the first game was actually against Lossy. And turned up thinking, right, I'm probably going to be in the stand. There was only 2 subs in that times, so they got to sit in the stands. Kids nowadays who sit there, you know, with squads of 20 odd and they don't play. There was me turning up for my first game thinking, if I'm number 14 and I'm not in the stand, I'm going to wait to play junior football well in United to get myself out there. You read out the team sheet, I was number 4, straight in at sweeper, and Gary Clark, Darren Still had joined in the summer that year for big money, obviously, from Bucky. I think it was, Dave, you'll maybe know what the tribunal fee was for that, but highly controversial. Tommy?
36.
36 for the 2 of them. So it had been a big story. They came, Devon Vale had been 15th the season before, and Ian Stewart put the Lossy 1-0 up. Ian Stewart put Lossy 2-0 up. Great player, as Tommy said. And then just about 10 minutes into the second half, I was covering it right back, and the ball went in over the top. Gary Clark got in on goals, and I chased him down. And you knew if you were running back in them days that the striker would have the sprint, but there would always be the moment of gap as they looked up to judge where the keeper was before they looked down to hit it again. And I caught him and was able to put a sliding tackle in through the legs, hook my foot onto the ball, so just as he hit it, he went over the ball, I stood up, walked away with the ball, and Gary Clark was a big name signing. He was quick, so it kind of basically made a bit of a name for him at Devon Vale with that. We came back 2 late goals, drew 2-2. Lossy were tipped to challenge Huntly for the title, and they kind of knackered that a little bit on day 1, dropping points to Devon Vale. And they never looked back, played every minute of that season, was skipper within 5-6 months, just a couple of days after turning 19. And Kevin Bremner, Billy Anderson, Dode Simmers were just superb.
You've obviously mentioned a few names there. Who are the real characters in the team? I mean, the last one there straight away, Dode Simmers. I was actually up in Speyside at the weekend, and as we were coming home by boat brig and coming to Malben, and I met Dode Simmers Senior.
Yeah, well, it's Dode Simmers Senior I'm talking about.
Out on his bike.
Yeah, good old Edward. So the Silver Fox, it was Kevin came in, and Kevin was very much like John in terms of a simplicity. They had such a good background in terms of having played senior football for years. Everything was positive, everything was simple. This is what you're going to do, this is where we move to do it, this is how you do it, that's it. Billy Anderson was, again, so underrated around the Highland League. He put the arm around the shoulder for a young lad like me would sit at half time, what you think about it, where's the mistake, where's the errors, where's the shape, all that kind of stuff. Billy was superb. And Dode would just fire you up. Dode would you basically went out for the warm-up, and if you weren't warming up quick enough, Dode would kick you. And he was just that kind of character of, I'm twice your age, I'll still rattle through anything, or he was like 3 times my age, he would still rattle through anything. And they were fantastic. In terms of on the pitch, we had a very good young team. Dippy was at left back, and he was about 21 at the time. I was 18. Vici in goals was 18. We had centre mid Murray Ritchie at 21 with Paul Bridgeford in front, 21. Ross McLean left wing. So we had Stewie Cameron came in as well. So they were all 20, 21. They were all kind of the same age. And a useful side, but it was Rico Masson, who Tommy will know from the Tory kind of Tory collective.
Yeah.
And Rico was like, his helicopter back foot, that was his technique. He would stand in front of the ball and his back foot would be going like that. And then he would either go right or left. He had no idea, we'd no idea, nobody had any idea. But when Rico hit form, he was a great player, but he was a really good laugh around the club. And one day he was slightly late in for a team talk, because like Tommy was out the side having a fag before kick-off. And he did a shout, "Come on, Rico, get in, we're just about in the team talk." So he gets in, trousers off, up they go, we're sitting there in the shorts and that. All of a sudden there's smoke in the tiny wooden dressing room at Devon Vale at the time. Rico's trousers had caught fire, his pocket had caught fire, because he didn't put his fag out properly. He just quickly put it in his pooch. And there was Rico's trousers. We also had Mark Strachan, who is he Kincorth rather than Tom? Kincorth.
Yeah.
Now he was a beast. He was a dream for me, because I was quite quick at sweeper, and he just went through anything that was in front. And he'd a bit of the red mist, Strach at times. If Strach could control his red mist, he was a cracking player. He frightened all the strikers, but he could play a little bit as well. And I just loved playing behind Strach in the early days.
Stephen, can I mention your time at Dersville without having a huge shout out for Mr. Banff himself, Stuart McPherson, who seems to have been there for 100+ years. I mean, what a guy that is. His passion and his enthusiasm and his dedication to his football club is unbelievable. He's just quite a guy, is he?
At that age, he was young enough to be going out with the players all the time. So we'd quite a few nights out with Mr. Bab, with the blazer on, going about the Seafield and the likes of that. It was a really good group. It was a nice, like I say, with a lot of young players. The committee was knitted together really well. Eddie Bruce was driving the club forward at that time. It's before Alan Still came in properly, but still, when he was off, he was still in his boat. When he was coming back in, he would be close with Kevin Bremner, and he would work on Bremner's fitness and stuff like that. But also we had the group that Mr. Bam's father, Alex looked after the kit and the boots, and I was 18-year-old, young lad about town, university, all this kind of stuff. So I didn't quite get the idea that there's a big pile of dirty drawers put in, and you had to pick out which drawers to wear for this communal pile. And I had this wee black tight pair that would fit, and if you weren't there quick enough, they were gone, and you had to pick up this big sort of grey pair of Y-fronts that were now about 6 sizes too big for you. So Feather picked up on this, and he used to wash my drawers and keep them separate, and he'd fold them up and he'd put them in my boots, and at the end of the season made sure I got Feather a bottle of whiskey. But there was the group of pensioners who looked after the kit, and Dugan looked after the pitch and kept it fantastic. And quite often that's forgotten about football clubs.
Indeed.
The pensioners who come in and do jobs around the place, they do a massive service and help the community in that sense.
And Bingo would have been around the place at that time as well.
Bingo, aye. Bingo, as you say, characters like that at Devon Vale, they carried the club and they fronted the club. Eddie Bruce was able then to quietly do the work that went on behind it. And during my time at the Vale, we went from the old wooden huts at the end and the porter cabin at the side of the pitch into the fantastic stadium in the sort of mid to late 90s at that time. I remember them burning down the stand at the Vale, which was an absolute death trap at the best of times. I think one of the last games that we had in the stand was against Fulham, with Jimmy Hill sitting in the stand, then giving us a speech about Bosnia and Sarajevo's troubles after that in the social club. But for me, it was one of the enjoyable games. We played against Terry Hurlock, who had been a real star for Rangers, an absolute beast of a man. And I got the chance to have a 80-20 in my favour with Terry Hurlock.
Brilliant.
Which
Stephen,
I lost.
obviously, four wonderful years at Princess Royal Park. We'll hear about the next stage of your career next time. But for the moment, thanks very much. Back to you, Dave.
Yeah, Stephen, before we leave it, I was sitting next to Jimmy Hill that night. And one of the first things he said to me, he says, "You know that song, David?" And I says, "Yes, Jimmy." He says, "I'm not, you know. I'm definitely not." Lovely man he was. He was a really, really nice man. Another name I'll throw at you from those days, Biz.
Biz, yeah. Well, Biz, you know, Stuart McPherson's got a lovely photo that he shares every now and again with 5 of them. And Biz was one of that ones that was in there. And I remember him getting interviewed for North Tonight when we went to play Albion Rovers in the Scottish Cup, having qualified for the first time in 32 years. And you just saw the joy in his face from that. And Stuart McPherson, as Dippy will tell you, crying on the pitch at Elgin City when we beat them to qualify for that. They were big things for a club that had been through tough times.
Yeah, happy memories indeed, Stevie. Thank you for that. John, happy memories of Wolverhampton, but after 3 years at Molineux, you decide to move on. How did that come about, John?
Jesus, I'm going to sound like I'm the unluckiest guy in the world here, but I actually, you know, I was doing well at the time. I was in and around the first team squad, and I'd played like 7-8 games, and Wolves were going bankrupt, and there was 15 or 16 of us whose contracts were all coming up, and they couldn't offer us a new contract. So I think it was on a Monday, they announced that they were giving free transfers to, there's myself, George Berry, there was a Willie Carr, there was a load of guys. There was like 13 or 14 of us. So on the Tuesday night, we're playing Man United reserves at Molineux, and Gordon McQueen was centre half for United at the time in the reserves. So we beat them 2-0. I scored both goals. Go home. 7 o'clock next morning. There was no cell phones back in them days, right? So the phone goes at the house, and I was living with a girl at the time, and she comes upstairs and she's like, "Oh, it's some manager from Walsall on the phone." Because I was 19-year-old. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, you know. I was like, there was no agents and all back then, and so I get it, and it's Neil Martin, the Walsall manager, Scottish guy. So he says, "I was at the game last night. I really liked you." He said, "I need you to come across to the ground right now. I'm here with my chairman. We want to sign you." So I jumped in the car, drove over to Walsall. It was only like 12 miles away, you know. So sat there. He told me the story about how he was going to take the club up. He was going to do this, that, the chairman, this. And, you know, I was naive. I was naive. So I signed a 3-year contract. I get back home, so at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and my girlfriend's got a list. 13 different clubs had been on the phone. Birmingham, Middlesbrough, Luton, David Pleat at Luton. There was like 13 clubs had been on the phone trying to get a hold of me. So I called them back up at Walsall, and I said, listen, I made a mistake. I think I wrote. He said, no, son, you didn't make a mistake. He says, we've registered the contract and everything. You're our player now and everything. I mean, I hated it. I hated it from the second I walked in the place. Because I'd gone from Wolves to, we had our own training ground. You know, you're training every day with Andy and you know, top players, you know. And Jim Barron was my coach. And I just hated it. So they had a striker there called Alan Buckley. Bucks was a big striker in the English lower leagues, you know. So he brings me in and he drops Alan Buckley. So it's only the last 5-6 games of the season we're playing them. Middle, you know, I've gone from going to Main Road and Goodison and places like this to going to Huddersfield and bloody Darlington and places like that, you know. I'm like, oh, Jesus, what did I do? And so what happens is Neil Martin leaves. He goes, he gets a job in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, somewhere like that. Who gets a manager's job? Alan Buckley. Becomes player manager. So we all call them Bucks, right? This is no word of a lie. My first conversation with him when we go back for pre-season training, I said, well, what do we call you? Call you Bucks, boss? What he said? And he's got that wee squeaky voice. It doesn't matter what you call me. You're not going to be here that long. You know? I was like, oh, cheers. You know? And it was just a few months of torture because I went from earlier that year, I played my last game in the first team. I played that in Wolves to all of a sudden I was in the reserves at Walsall in the 3rd division. So I actually hated football. I started disliking football. I hated going to training. And then one night I was playing the reserve game. I came after the game, I was getting in my car, and this guy approached me and he said, hey, would you like to go and play in Germany? I said, Germany? I said, Germany? I don't know any in Germany. He said, no, there's an agent who's seen you who'd like to take you across to Germany. He thinks you could do well. He said, here's this guy's phone number. Gave me this guy's phone number. He's an English guy. He used to play for Leeds. Not the Alan Clark, but his guy's name was Alan Clark. So he was in Germany. And he told me, he said he had this agent, never forget his name, old Willy Reinke. He used to actually be an old postman. He was a postman in the war for the Nazis. He used to drive the post bike. And he got shot in the ankle. So he had this limp, you know. Didn't speak a word of English. And so he just said, listen, I'd love to, through the interpreter, I'd like to take you, I think you could do well in Germany, that, you know. He said, because at that time, you know, I had great pace, and I was a very pacey player. And so I'm finally convinced Walsall to forget paying me the signing-on fee and all that, and then let's just rip up the contract. So then the guy says, so I'll get that. And then he says, listen, we need to get a letter from the club saying that we paid $100,000 to get you, you know, to the age. And I went, oh, they're not going to give me any of that. So there was a local team called Willenhall Town. And I knew a couple of the boys who played for them. So I says to them, I said, listen, I'll come and play 2 or 3 games for you if you do me a favour. They said, what's that? I said, I need a letter from your secretary saying that this guy, Willie, the agent, has paid $100,000 to buy me from you. And they said, okay. So I played 2 or 3 games for Willenhall. They gave me this letter and said, you know, and then as me, I went off to Germany. And in Germany, I was training with Schalke 04, Schalke 04, for about 4 or 5 months. Unbelievable. I mean, just the difference, for even at Wolves, the difference of professionalism from there to the Bundesliga. was unbelievable. The training was unreal. You train in the morning, and then in the middle of the stadium, they had all these rooms, all these beds. So you'd have a bit of lunch, and then you'd go sleep for 2-3 hours. And then you'd train at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you know? And then if you got injured, the facilities was just, it was incredible, incredible. And there was a player, a sweeper, and I stayed at his house for a couple of weeks, called Bernard Dietz. Don't know if you remember him, played for Germany as a sweeper. What a player. What a player, unbelievable. You know, and I just, through that, I learned more about the game and about, you know, in England, how the game was all rush, 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 rush. And in Germany, I learned about, it's not about rush. You know, it's about the touch. It's about the technique. You know, saving your energy when it needed to be. Just stuff like that. And then one day, the guy told me, he said, hey, listen, you're going to Austria, to Vienna. I was like, what? He says, yeah. He says, there's a team wants to sign you in Vienna. So off I went to Austria. I went and signed for a Vienna Sport Club, they were called. They were in Vienna, and there's two massive teams in Vienna, Austria Rapid and Austria Vienna. And then it's like Celtic, Rangers, and Partick Thistle. Well, I signed for the Partick Thistle of Vienna Sport Club. And I was there for a season. And you guys will probably remember. You remember when Celtic played Rapid Vienna, and one of the players got kicked in the, you know what, and in the bandage room, he said, Peter Packholt. Well, I used to play up front with Peter at Vienna Sport Club. He was there for 4 years before he got transferred to Austria Rapid, you know. And that was a fantastic time. I lived in Vienna for over a year. It was just unbelievable. I loved it. You know, and all this time, I'm still only 22-year-old, you know, 21, 22-year-old. So, but that's when my career started getting that, because I did my ankle ligaments on my right foot, and I was out for 3 months, and I come back, played 2 games, and I got the exact same injury on my left. So I was out for about 5 months altogether, and I lost that half a yard of pace. That's when I'd lost that half a yard of pace because of them 2 injuries, you know. And to this day, I've got weak ankles.
Yeah. And after that, it was a return to English football with Blackpool at Bloomfield Road.
Yeah, that's when I came back. And, well, actually, I came back and I did pre-season with Wolves, because I went back and lived in Wolverhampton. And I knew all the boys still at Wolves. And Danny Craney had signed for Celtic. So I became good pals with Danny. So Danny spoke to Tommy Docherty, and they got me down for pre-season. So I did pre-season at Wolves. I was top goal scorer. Everybody was saying, oh, Teasy, they're going to sign you. They're going to sign you. Oh, they have to sign you, Teasy. You're top goal scorer. You're doing great. And it looked like I thought they were going to sign me. And then out of the blue, Tommy Docherty went and signed 2 strikers. He just went and signed 2 strikers. Turned up the one day. And so that was that. So, and then I got a phone call for Sam Allardyce at Blackpool. It was the start. By now, it was the start of the season, a month into the season. And Big Sam said, "Oh, I heard about you from so and so. I'd like to sign you." And I went up, met Big Sam. Great character, absolutely gem of a man. And I was at Blackpool for a season. You know, to be honest, that's my most enjoyable season of football was at Blackpool. Most enjoyable, because we were always in the top 3 or 4, and we ended up finishing second. Back in them days, it was the top 2 that went up, you know. And we would take 4,000 or 5,000 fans away from home. It was brilliant. I stayed in the hotel. There was 5 or 6 of the players. Mick Conroy, who's still a good pal of mine today, he used to play for Celtic, Binza. There was 5, 6 of us. Danny signed for, by that time, Danny had signed for Wolves. So we all lived in a hotel in Blackpool, and I cannot even begin to tell you about the mayhem. You know, the physio, the physio of the club owned the hotel. So it was madness. It was madness. Blackpool's a brilliant place to live back in them days, and especially in the winter time when there was no tourists. It was all locals, and the team was doing well. And any time you're at a pro club and the team's doing well, the town's buzzing, everybody's buzzing. You know, in all the bars, the clubs, it was just brilliant. You know, it was a good time. It was a great time.
And with the illuminations going on over the winter, it'd been a really interesting time, I would imagine, John.
Oh, it was just, honestly, it was, I mean, there was 5 or 6 players in the hotel. I mean, every night there was, you know, every night was a party, you know what I mean? It was like the old door. Remember the doors they used to have at these hotels and that, they would just go round and round and round. It was like that with women coming in and out the hotel. You know? It was, you know, because you know, you were football player, you were pro football players, so, you know, it was just, you know, and we were all mates, and it was just fun, man. It was a real fun time, and they got promoted, and then Sam offered me another contract, but I wasn't really, you know, for the pro level, at that level, I really had my pace. I'd lost that, but I still quick, but I wasn't to be a strong. Paul Stewart, who ended up going to Liverpool and Man City, he was the striker at that time. He was only a 17-year-old kid, you know, but it was inevitable. He was playing. Eamon O'Keefe was up front, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to get a game here. I don't want to hang on and just train and play in the reserves and stuff like that, you know. And then so I left, you know, and I left, went back to Wolverhampton, and then I wasn't sure. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in my life and everything, and messed around for a few months, and then I decided, you know what, I want to get the indoor league. I went on trial. I went for a week's trial. It wasn't a week's trial, actually. It was just a day at Highbury. Arsenal had this indoor training facility with an indoor pitch and all that. And Wichita Hawks, whatever they were called, indoor soccer team from Wichita, Kansas, were having trials. So I went and did that. And it was doing between me and one other guy, whatever. They end up picking the other guy. But I spoke to a few guys there, and they told me how soccer was taking off, the indoor league was taking off. And I thought, you know what, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should go to America. Maybe I should go over there and give it a try, you know. Because by this time, I was still only, 24? I was only 23, I think it was, you know. So a few months later, I up and left to go. I flew to New York. I don't know why. I flew to New York. I think it was because I'm a friend of a friend, a place to live. I arrived in New York in the December. Oh my God. I thought I knew cold with the north of Scotland, you know. Jesus. I mean, of course, I had no thermal wear, no nothing. Oh, I mean, it was Baltic. It was murder. And I was there for a few weeks. And the guy I was living with was a Scottish guy. He said, John, he said, you should go to somewhere. I said, does it ever get hot here? I always watched the telly. I always see the sunshine and the beach and all the women in the sun swimsuits. So what? I said, everybody's wrapped up the high door here. And he said, oh, you should go to, you have to go to California or Florida. And just my ignorance, I had no idea the size of America. No idea, you know. I was like, okay. I said, well, so I looked up flights to California, and it was ridiculous, but it was only 2 weeks before Christmas or so, but it was like $400, you know, and that was 1986, I think it was. So I said, the guy says, but you get a Greyhound bus. He said, much cheaper. So I looked at the Greyhound bus, right? The guy, it's $150. I was like, $400 to fly, $150 on a bus. I said, oh, it's a no-brainer. I'll take the bus. So I didn't know the bus took 3 days. I had no idea. I thought it was like maybe 6-7 hours, something like that. I got on this Greyhound bus in New York, and I'm telling you, every nutcase in America sat next to me on that bus. I had one guy sit next to me. They call it PTSD nowadays. Back then, you were just a nutcase, right? this guy and he started telling me about the Vietnam War, and he's talking, and then all of a sudden you break in. I was like, oh Jesus, what's going on? Everybody in the bus is looking at us, and but the guy was only like in his early 20s. He couldn't have been to Vietnam, you know. I was sitting there listening to them buying into it. Ah, jeez, that's scary, God. Yeah, man, I was surrounded, man. I was all these motherfuckers. I thought, yeah, I'm sick of Vietnam. So that was that. And then 3 days later, I get off a Greyhound bus at Long Beach, California. I've got $4 left in my pocket. It's no word to lie, $4. I didn't know a soul. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? So I just say to myself, you know what? If I find a British bar, I know they're going to have a football team and I want me to play, I'll get a job or something just to get myself going. And I walked down the streets, couldn't find a British bar, but I seen this sports bar called Legends Sports Bar. I walk in, and God must have been looking down on me, because there was this English lassie as the hostess, girl from Leeds. And she said, what are you doing? I told her, I said, darling, I just come off this bus for New York. I said, 3 days, my head's done. I said, I've got nowhere to stay, I've got no money. I said, I need to find a British bar, fit my team. She said, oh, my brother, he plays in this, but she said, sit down. She got me something to eat and all that. Got me a drink. And then a wee while longer, I'm a great believer in fate. Things happen for a reason. I'm a great believer in that. I said, a wee while longer, this guy comes in, young guy, early 20s, and kind of half drunk. He's like, hey, and he gave the girl a hug and all that. She said, oh, this is my boyfriend and all that, American kid. Introduced me to him. So she's giving us free drinks, you know. So she says, listen, he's got nowhere to stay. Do you know we can stay? The guy goes, come stay with me. You come and stay with me for a while. I was like, oh, that's nice. Jesus Christ. I've only just met the guy, doesn't know who I am. So next thing I know, this truck pulls up. We get outside. There's only two people can sit in the front. So him and the other guy said, I'm sitting in the back of this truck. You know, nighttime, freezing. I was like, Jesus. You know, nowadays you go, oh no, I could never do this. Traveling in a truck with somebody I'd never know. You'd be dead in the back of a bush somewhere, you know. But we turned up at this house, beautiful house, massive big house. I was like, geez, look at this. So I'm not thinking, this guy, he can't own this. Jeez. Next, because he's half drunk as well, knocks on the door opens, it's his mother. And I'm stood there with a bag, sports bag and a case. And his mother's looking at me. And he goes, hey, ma'am, this is John. John's going to stay with us for a while. You know, I was like, his mom was like, oh, okay, come in. Mrs. Murphy, never forget them. So I go in. Well, the mom and the dad, they had their own church. They're born again Christians. The nicest people you can ever meet in your life. You couldn't meet nicer people. I mean, who's going to open the door and a total stranger if another company's there and say, come on in? So I lived with them for about 2 months. Every night, saying prayers before meal. I'd never done all that before. And you like this one. So the one day I'm sitting there, I'm watching MTV, back in them days, MTV. And I'm just singing, and I'm saying to myself, I said, Camaro, Camara, Camare, Camaro, Camara, Caroha. Just the kind of things that's the north of Scotland would come out with nonsense, you know? And the woman, Mrs. Murphy goes, she comes, John. I goes, what's up, Mrs. Murphy? She goes, you've been saved. I goes, what? You've been saved. I said, what do you mean? She says, you're talking in tongues. You've been saved. I says, oh my God, I got to get out of this. I got to get out of this house. I didn't have the heart to tell her. I said, no, that's just how us people in the north of Scotland gibber on, you know. I said, no. So I was living with them. Go quickly. I found a football field where these teams played, a bunch of Yugoslavian guys, LA Croats, they were called Croatians. Played a couple of games with them. There was a couple of British guys playing with them. So they say to me, hey, we're playing against the Exiles. And I said, who's the Exiles? They said, oh, it's all British guys from up in LA. Because I was just south of LA. He said, oh, Rod Stewart plays for them. And I said, oh, okay. So we played against them, beat them 3-1. I scored all three. After the game, they all came over and Rod and that came on, they went, hey, come and play with us, come and play with us. I said, guys, I said, I'm looking for a, you know, you know who I am. I said, I need to get paid, I need to make a living. I said, I was going to try and play the indoor football, but I need to get a job for a while. So the guy said, where's your number? I said, well, this is where I'm staying. So I gave him a number. So the next day, and Rod, you know, and of course, Rod Stewart sat next to me, and I was like, oh, God, because I loved Rod. Always, you know, my Uncle Josie loved Rod. And I was like, oh. And I was like, so I'd love to play with you, Rod, but, you know. And the next day, they called me, the goalkeeper, and God bless him, lovely man. But he had a limousine company in Hollywood. So he called me and he went, he said, listen, if you come and play for us, I'll give you a job driving limousines. You make about $1,000, $1,500 a week. And I said, well, and he's going on and on and on. And I didn't know what a limousine was, you know. I said, what's that? And I was thinking it's a big truck or a lorry or something, you know. I said, what limousine? What's a limousine? And then he told me, I said, oh, Jesus, I can't drive one of them. I said, but anyway, I took the job and then went and started playing with them, and it was just like a wonderful, wonderful time, you know. It was an amazing time, you know. And a lot of the character that is me probably came from that time, you know. You know, I was at Rod's house every week for probably about 1.5 years. I was at his house every week, and the crack, and he was good to me. I mean, he was, you know. I remember I was driving the limousines down Rodeo Drive, right? Now, it's Rodeo Drive. Some of you have been there, I don't know, but it's unbelievable. It's, you know, but half the stores you can't even go in unless you have an appointment, you know. So anyway, I'm driving past the Armani store and I see this suit. So I pull the limousine over, park it up, and I run in, and I'm thinking, that suit's unbelievable. I said, oh yeah, it's probably going to cost me $400 or $500, you know. I said, oh, it's unreal. I've got to have it. I go in, right? I said, hey guys, that suit. I said, I love that suit. You know, try the jacket. I said, that fits. It's good. Okay. I said, how much is it? He goes, $2,800. $2,800. I'm like, what? I said, $2,800 for a suit. I said, you can't be right, man. That's a mistake, you know. And he's like, the guy's looking at me. He said, no, buddy, you're the mistake. I'm like, so the Tuesday night at training.
Hello? Is that your mum again, John?
Yeah.
Is that your mum?
Or Rod?
Yeah. So the Tuesday night at training, I'm telling Rod, right? I'm telling the story, and he's laughing. I said, Rod, I swear to God, man. I said, I was so embarrassed. I said, you know, I said, so 2 weeks later, it's no wonderful lie. You know, people talk about Rod and say things about them, and he was cheap, and he's this, that. You know, I've heard all sorts of people say things about him, you know. 2 weeks later, we played on the Sunday. And back in them days, there was no Sky, there's no digital, you know. His father used to tape the games and send the tapes over to Rod. So Rod used to say to me a lot of the time, we'd play on the Sunday, and after the game in the bar, he'd whisper, he would say, Teasy, you come round the house. He says, I got the tape, we'll watch Match of the Day and that, you know. And I'm like, all right, Rod, no problem. And so I go around his house, we watch Match of the Day and that, and he disappears. And Rod's house was unbelievable. I mean, it was Rod's house in the gardens, and it was like Morriston, guys. You know what I mean? For you guys, you all know, it was like Morriston, the size of Morriston. And so, but the house was about half the size of Morriston. So the next thing I hear, he's shouting, Teasy, Teasy, Teasy. And I'm like, what? Can't I go through in the room? And he come up here. I go up the stairs. Now he's got this walk-in closet in his bedroom, right? And the walk-in closet was probably half the size of the stand at Borough Briggs, right? Just massive. So massive. So the next thing, he starts picking up shorts and jacket. He went, here, try that. I'm like, and he put that size. What is that size? How's that size? And then I remembered telling him about the suit. I says, Rod, stop. I says, mate, I didn't tell you that story to ask you for clothes, mate. I'm not. He says, Teasy, look at this. And I'm not joking, it was unbelievable. And most of the stuff's still in the wrappers, you know. he says, I get Versace or Armani, I get sent to me because he said they want me to wear it because it promotes them. He says, I'll never wear half this stuff. I left Rod's house that night in a Fiat that I bought for $300 with 35 grand's worth of gear in it. Right? Unbelievable. He gave me like $35,000 worth of clothes. It was just an amazing thing that he did. It was brilliant. It was fantastic. So now, of course,
I'm loving these. I'm going to have to stop you there because we got on to the next segment, and Martin will be fizzling with me. But I'm going to stop you there. Martin's going to carry on in a wee while. But I'm amazed that you know Finlay Noble's best friend, Rod Stewart. That's quite amazing.
Actually, as it happens, Rod's mentioned Finlay a few times.
There you go. There you go.
Wonderful memories and great stories. But we'll come back to that very soon, John. Thank you.
There's one thing for sure, I can guarantee there's no way ever Finlay Noble would leave Rod Stewart's house with any suits. Stephen, sorry, Tommy. You've spent something like 7 years at Lossy. George Adams comes along and tempts you to come down to the Blue Toon.
Aye, George the Bandit. Aye. Yeah, I'd been injured and had 2 operations in my foot, and trying to get back in. Lossy had become a very good side, and trying to get back in there was becoming difficult after Beirut, and I just wanted to play. I mean, I think I was 30, 31 then, and Jimmy Cheen had come in, and Jimmy had stepped into the left back role. And he played very, very well, and there was no way I shifted him. And I just come to phrase and just said, look, it's maybe about time. I mean, I'm not getting any younger, and I need to be playing at this age. And he never stood my way. He was great about it. And how George got, I have no idea, but George come along and said, oh, and he gave me the usual talking. Most of it being that you'll get 500 quid a week and holiday in Spain every other month, which if only it comes, George will know that he'll tell you one thing and do another. But he's a lovely, lovely man, Ken. He talks a good, he Ken's a good player. He's spotted a lot of good players, Ken. He's been around a lot of good players. He's had a good career himself. And when I went there, I thought he was building some. I mean, he had a very good defense. Neil Burke played at that time as well. In that team, Mark Emsley, guys that come from Aberdeen, John Siverick, who I landed playing next to. As a matter of fact, I played next to John. I never touched the ball for about 2 seasons, if I remember correctly, because Sivy won everything. But then, I was Gorgeous, Gordon Duncan. Remember Gorgeous?
Yes, yeah.
Gorgeous played, and Paul McKenzie. Probably one of the most talented boys I've ever come up against or played with. McKenzie was just a phenomenal talent. I think he went to Burnley, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Paul McKenzie. Paul.
Yeah, Paul. I think he went to Burnley, if I remember
indeed,
correctly.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a wonderful, wonderful lad. But I was boys like Robbie Cheen, Craig Watson, Mark Watson, Grant Cool, Scotty Tate, Neil Burke. It landed up being a really, really tight bunch of lads. And he gave us a minibus eventually, an old battle thing that we used to drive up to Aberdeen every weekend. And the idea being that whoever wasn't drinking would drive it back.
You didn't let Scotty Tate drive, did you?
Scotty drove it a few times because he was actually going out with Bomber's daughter at the time. So he used to pull into Bomber's house, Ken, and we think, oh, well, Scotty's driving. And Scotty would go out and go on a whiskey. He'd go, you're driving the boat. Oh, no, anyway, I'm here. I'm done now. I'm fine here. We're left with a minibus and 8 guys and everybody's been drinking, Ken. You're like, oh, cheers, Scott. Thanks for that. Normally, if it would happen, there's Robbie Chain would go, fine, I'll drive. So he would drive with about 8 pints in him and God, fuck. Crazy. And then he'd waken up the next morning at his own house and wonder where the minibus was, which was still parked in the car park at the Bell's Hotel. But yeah, it was great guys, really good guys, and it were good times. Ken, we played the Scottish Cup, and we drew with Cowdenbeath at home, and we had to go to the Up Park the next week, which was the most surreal thing in the world to play on. If you can, that at that time they'd stock car racing.
Still do, Tommy. Still do.
They still do.
Still do, yeah.
We had to kick the game off early because the stock cars take precedent, right? And we were walking off, and just before we could get off, the Parker's cars whizzing round into these gribby tyres and bursting in. You're thinking, this is a Scottish Cup tie we just played. Look what's happening here. Very surreal. But yeah, it was good, guys. A lot of good times. That blue boogie bus that I was telling you about, that happened to, I think we played Ross County in the last game, the last game in the league, or in the Highland League, and we went up there and the stereo on the bus was broken. So what happened was Ali Bremner had rigged up speakers that he took out his house for his stereo. So it's like things this size, and he managed to wire them into the bus. So when we pulled into Dingwall, the noise when you open the door was right. It was like somebody turned up with a rave at Dingwall. Everybody's looking around going, what the hell is going on there? And I'll never forget that when we finished and we were driving back, there used to be, I think it was a Tesco somewhere just beside the hotel, around about in Inverness, before you leave Inverness, and we'd stop there to get a drink on the bus. And the bus door opened again. There was people running from the bus. They thought it was going to be robbed. The noise that was coming out of it. Absolutely hilarious.
Was there a change of management when you were there, Tommy?
Yeah, George left at the end and Jim Guyan took over. But prior to that, George had got Ian Wilson in, the ex-Leicester City player. And I thought Ian was coming on board. Ian was coming as a player and a coach. And I played quite a few games along with Ian, but Jim Guyan had taken it over. I thought Jim did very well, really, really well. He's a lovely guy, Jim. That was Jim's downfall for me. He's far, far too nice a guy. Jim is pristine. He's the only guy that kind of walks off a pitch after the game's finished. He doesn't need to wash his kit. It's absolutely unbelievable. He glides across the park. And he's such a pleasure to be around.
Bit more pressure at Peterhead than there was at Lossy to achieve things.
For a start, yeah, but things as I were there sort of come the other way around. You know what I mean? The Lossy become better and better. And they're overtaken. By the time I left Peterhead, Lossy were overtaken. Peterhead, as far as I could see. But yeah, there was a wee bit. And there was in bigger crowds. There was bigger expectations. They only won the league about 2 years prior to that, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Who was the chairman then, Tommy?
Bill. Oh, sorry, Colin Grant.
Colin Grant.
Colin, yeah. Bill was the secretary. All Bill. He was a lovely, lovely man.
Bill passed away. Bill Campbell passed away just
I did hear that, like, yeah.
back, yeah.
Yeah, he's a lovely man.
Colin's still involved at the club. He's match day ambassador.
Okay.
And currently trying to pull some information together for a wee bit of history. It's 20 years since we went into the Scottish League.
Is it?
So he's...
you might feel all new.
The lockdown has kind of hampered things a wee bit in that front as well. But you'd have played at Recreation Park, of course.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I never played at the Balmoral. It was always Recreation.
Huge, and it was quite a...
I can't remember ever playing there with a wind. Never. Absolutely. But all the time it was blowing a hoolie.
Sandy Tables, God rest him, used to tell a story about the first time he'd ever been to Recreation Park. I think we were looking to sign a player, and then went into the social club after the game, and the first thing he saw, there was a poster on the door as you went in, and it said, "Nae Brockers."
That was good times, like playing against the Brock and the Derby. That was great. Like, I remember we were playing Fraserburgh, and I was taking a throw in, and it was down on the right hand side for a pie shop, and that is past the pie shop. And I was just about to take a throw, and a mince pie hit me in the back of the head. Some old man he threw a pie at me, and I turned around and he says, "You're going to take a full throw when your fit's in the pitch." like, cross my fits in the pitch, you just hit me with a pie.
If it's any consolation, Peterhead quite often will play Fraserburgh in a pre-season friendly. So I'll rephrase that. Quite often, Peterhead will play Fraserburgh pre-season.
Aye, there's never any friendlies there.
And bearing in mind, obviously, the vast majority of our players we've no Peterhead-based players at the moment.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt in any of the squad's minds that they know exactly what's expected of them. It may be a pre-season, but this will be a good stern test for us, and Brock do very well.
Yeah.
Tommy, fascinating stuff. We'll speak about your next stage of your career in a wee bit, but for now,
sure.
back to Dave.
David, after 4 seasons at Princess Royal Park, you went to America. Why was that, Steve?
I'd graduated university. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I'd lived up here and I wanted to see a bit more. So, like John, had a bit of wanderlust, and I spoke to Kevin, who'd gone down to Gillingham at the time, and said to him, look, if he hears anything in the States, I'd like to go there. Went through the whole process. He managed to do a lot of work for me. A guy, Sean Dawkin, called me up, talked to me about looking at Mount Pleasant and sitting out looking at the beach, and would I like to come across to Charleston Southern University? Of course, I'm sitting there watching The Simpsons and Crime Street above the butchers with a duvet over me because it was freezing and we were students that couldn't afford to put on the heating. And so I was all up for that, but the visa took ages. So on the first day of pre-season at Devon Vale that year, did pre-season, went into travel agents in Crown Street, booked the cheapest flight I could get to one of the holiday islands, and it turned out to be Magaluf. Turned all my cash into, I was got traveller's check, but it was pesetas because you couldn't get traveller's checks, so there's that late. Had a night out, ended the night out, finished up, filled up the suitcase, and then drove, because I wasn't drinking, drove back home, got a lift to the airport the next day, and went to Magaluf. And John's story about turning up in LA was really similar. I thought, yeah, Magaluf, there's going to be hotels everywhere. I thought it'd be like here, you'd walk in, get a hotel, no bother at all, be fine. Walked in, first 2-3 hotels, no book, no room, no book, no room. Shit. Andy Lavelle, who'd played for Keith, I knew he worked in one of the bars, and so I was walking past BCM, 3 o'clock in the morning, me with my big suitcase, all my cash in it, everything. Folk walking out, foaming their heads, all this kind of stuff. I started asking where this bar was. This 2 Irish lassies who were working at one of the bars went, oh, up there, round there, round there. Walked up, followed their directions, ended up straight back in front of them 5 minutes later. And they're like, oh, what are you doing? I said, well, I explained this. I said, look, I've got nothing. If I fall asleep on the beach, everything will get nicked. Because that's just the way it was. Anybody falling asleep on the beach used to see folk crawling underneath the sunbeds to nick stuff. And they says, oh, we've got a spare bed up in our flat up here. So they took me up the stairs and there was 2 Irish guys sitting there. And I was like, oh no, is this a setup? At that time, there was still the sort of bombings, there was still the troubles in Ireland, and I was just sitting there going, oh, what's going to happen here? Just went straight to bed. Lay there, quite quiet, nothing happened. Next morning was fine. And it was just great. Completely like John, absolutely landed bang on my feet. Went out with the 2 Irish guys the next night. We started looking for jobs. Ended up getting a job in a bar. The last bar we went into just sacked somebody before that. I'd worked in a bar in Aberdeen called Casanovas. There we were behind the bar, DJ here, this Spanish guy working with us and a Danish lassie. And you can imagine barman in Magaluf was like almost top of the power. John's talking about being a professional footballer. There was DJ and then there was barman in the city of Magaluf, so it was absolute chaos for 2 weeks. Superb. And phoned my mum to say, look, I'm sorted, I'm not coming back. And she goes, Stephen, have you not seen where Muckety Straits flooded? For some reason, she thought I was getting north tonight in Magaluf. And that was the first big Elgin flood. And I was like, no. And she goes, oh, and your visas came in for America. So that was it. Back I came, and away I went. And again, like John, so naive to the size of the state, so naive to everything else. Went across there, hadn't trained for 6 weeks because I'd done my knee in a pre-season game for the Vale. And the first day we were 120 degrees and we did a 6 mile run. And it was 2 laps of the campus and the coach led it. And halfway, 3 miles in, so at the end of the first lap of the campus, I stopped, water over my head, the water was just going like this. And the assistant coach was like, don't stop, keep going. That was the first time I told the assistant coach where to go. And it continued like that, but absolutely great time. Train in the morning every day, go to classes in the afternoon. Closest I ever got to the likes of the professional setup for that. Really, really fit. 120 degrees, tipped down about 100 by the end of October. And just a fascinating thing to do, to play in. And because I had the knowledge from the pro guys that had been worked in there, I was given a lot of rein on the pitch. And the coach just basically said to me, you can change whatever you like in the first half. Just tell me at halftime what you've done. And it worked out pretty well. We won our league, we got into the national finals, we got into the last 16 and introduced TV timeouts.
I imagine facilities were pretty spot on over there, Stevie, were they?
You didn't need so much facilities because it was so hot. No, there was no such thing as rain until almost Christmas. You would get thunderstorms at night, but it was lovely. There were a big locker room, and then out you went. But it wasn't a massive school. It was quite a small school. But it was grand. There was 6 or 7 English guys were over there as well. 3 or 4 from Trinidad and Tobago. And then with a token goalie from the States. And that was it. But we went towards the end of it, because you were playing in the NCAA finals. It was Fox Sports News Live or Fox Sports South Live with satellite on the bus and all this kind of stuff, because the NCAA are so rich from the other sports that they manage that they paid for everything, 5-star hotel, all this kind of stuff, which was nice. But that final game we played and got beat by Clint Mathis and Josh Wolfe. Mathis went on to be a big star in the 2002 World Cup. He played for the States within 6 months of that game. He was the other one with the Mohican, but Beckham had one. Mathis was the American one, got into, I think, the quarterfinals that year. Josh Wolfe also starred for them, and he was just a very similar player to Michael Stephen. I didn't think he was any better than Michael Stephen, I've got to say, at that time. And he scored at Hampden and at Wembley. So it was just, it's such a different world, different attitude. John, John knew all about, and if you hung around with John and Elgin at any point in that 90s, you knew all about the harsher side of Scottish football fans and Scottish people. There's an awful lot of negativity, a huge amount of negativity. And you went over to the States and everything was positive. Everything was fantastic. And it changed my outlook on life big time. Sometimes I wish I'd stayed, but I think the draw of the family, a farming background, a family were never really going to come across and visit much. So back I came at the end of that to get back involved in the Highland League, but also to then start the coverage. So everything I'd done after that was because I gained an appreciation for what the Highland League and Devon Vale had done for me, my family, and that as a young guy, which I would never have understood until I went away.
And when you did come home from holiday, you made cameo appearances for both Lossiemouth and Bucky Thistle, and then when you came back full time, Bucky Thistle was the one you chose.
Yeah, I I'd agreed with Tatters to go to Elgin when I came back. They didn't have the form, so I was going to go back on the Wednesday night. But I was going to speak to Billy Anderson on the Monday night, and you just never get out of the room without signing for Billy. So Billy and Alan, and it was a great decision in many ways because we just had a great group of guys. Grapies, Ryan Green, have been my best mates ever since. Pretty much Grapies, Grant and Big Ryan. Ryan I'd actually played with through the boys' league as well. And they signed 7 players that summer. Scott Anderson, Levi Stephen, Mikey Ray, John Scott, Paul Bridgeford, Gorgeous Gordon, and myself. And we went up, and we're only really 1 win away from winning the title that year. So it was fantastic. But again, it's the camaraderie, it's the dressing room, it's the nights out, and players like Mickey McPherson, who straightest face in the world, but it was him who was cutting everybody's socks and causing all the hassle, stirring up Levi and Mikey Ray into trying to do things back and forth, but it was all Mickey.
It was a good blend of youth and experience, though, Stevie, that team.
Aye. Well, it just had a great balance to it. Paul Lambert in left back, left centre half, Scotty Anderson in the middle, Mickey McPherson right centre half, Mikey Ray in goals behind that. You'd just a fantastic basis. Levi, John, myself, I was doing the running for the players in the middle. We just lacked goals, or enough goals that season. I ended up second top scorer, which tells you we lacked goals to win that campaign. But just again, the atmosphere was superb. The balance of the team was right. The mix of all the players was right. Unfortunately, after the Scottish Cup defeat at Ross County, having beaten Hamilton 2-0, when we lost to Ross County, debates about what we should have got, what we shouldn't have got, or debates just before that in terms of what our appearance money and what our win bonuses should have been, ended up ripping the club apart quite a bit. And over the next couple of years, it dived until the Duncans took over.
Well, we'll leave it there after 3 seasons at Bucky. Before you go to Elgin City, we'll touch on that very shortly. For the moment, thanks for that, Stevie.
John, Dave cut you in sort of mid-flow about your time when you were you first were in LA. Watch how I'm going to word this. You're a limo driver. Now, how do I say this right? Did you ever have anybody famous in your car?
Did I have any what?
Did you ever have any famous passengers in your car?
Oh, jeez, tons, man, tons. I used to drive Rod around. I used to take him and stuff, but I drove a lot of musicians. Anita Baker, if you heard Anita Baker.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
I drove Anita around LA for a few days. Beautiful woman. Genesis, Phil Collins, I mean, I drove Dean Martin to Santa Monica Airport. That was funny. I drove Jack Lemmon and his wife to the airport at LAX. Tons, loads. Bruce Willis, I drove tons. And most of them were top people. Most of them are brilliant people. It's the people who work for them who are the arseholes. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people who work for these stars, they don't want anybody else to get their job. So they don't like anybody getting close to them, they don't like anybody getting close. That was like with Rod. What happened with me and Rod is because fallout. I mean, I say fallout. What happened was Rod had a personal manager, Malcolm, who's an English guy, and he hated me, didn't like me, and I couldn't understand this. Why does this guy not like me? Because Rod was saying to me, "Hey, Teasy, come round the house Tuesday night. 5 o'clock. We'll have a kick around." I'd go up his house, knock on, do the bell on the gates and the loudspeaker, the intercom would. Who is it? I'd say, "Oh, Malcolm, it's Teasy. What do you want?" "Oh, Rod told me to come up." "Oh, he's playing with his kids. He's busy." "Okay, no problem." I go training on the Thursday. Rod said, why didn't you come around? I said, Rod, I came around. I was at the house. Malcolm said you were busy with the kids. That kind of, and then what happened? So Rod's 44th birthday party, right? Everybody was invited. You're invited to take one female guest. You and a female, your partner. So the guy calls me and he says, who are you bringing? I says, I'm not bringing anybody. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, why am I going to bring a bird to that? There's going to be a million of them there, you know what I mean? I was like, no, I'm coming by myself. So then a buddy of mine pops into town from Wolverhampton. He's a personal chef. He's worked for a lot of stars. He worked for Sinatra. He worked for Don Johnson. He worked for Goldie Hawn. So when we were in Wolverhampton, we knew the guys from Duran Duran, right? The group Duran Duran. Because the one guy married a girl from Wolverhampton who used to come in our local pub, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Andy Taylor from Duran. So Woody calls me and he says, hey, Teasy, he says, you going to Rod's party? I says, yeah. He says, I'll come with you. I said, hey, buddy, you ain't coming with me. I said, no. I said, this Malcolm's going to be looking. I said, if I walk into that party with somebody after telling them nobody, I says, I'm done. He says, it's okay. I'm on the list. Andy Taylor from Duran Duran. He says, I was out with Andy last night. He's put me on the list because Andy Taylor made an album with Rod. He was in the middle of making an album with Rod. So I said, you sure? Absolutely. No problem. So I had this just an old bucket of a car, $300 car. I said, come on, we'll meet up. We'll go to the Beverly Hills Hotel, which was a big place back then. The Polo Lounge, it's world famous. I said, we'll go in there. We'll give it the big style before we go to Rod's party. Now, Rod's birthday's in January. There's a lot of times in January it can rain in LA. As it happens, this night it's bucketing. It's coming down for the heavens. So we go to the Polo Lounge. We're in there. We meet these two women from Philadelphia. They're in town in January at the LA fashion shows. So the girl says, I'm here for the fashion show. She owned 5 boutiques in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania. She says, so of course my mate happened to big mouth tell the other bird, hey, we're going to Rod Stewart's party. So this girl says to me and this girl's kind of having a little thing going on. She goes, oh, take me to Rod's party. I says, listen, I'm not taking you. No chance. I'll meet you back here afterwards, but I'm not taking you. I said, I'm not getting in trouble. No chance. I'm doing nothing wrong to get myself in trouble with Rod, with his manager. So we leave, we go to the party. I mean, it's bucketing down, it's the heavens. So we pull up, and I'm in the car, Woody's in the car, and the security guy wind the window down. It's one of them, they just want to keep you going. I said, John Teasdale on it, and he's on the wrist from Andy Taylor, Woody's name. The guy's, on you go, quick. So we go inside, right? So I'm in Rod's party. And, well, first of all, there was a guy called Mick Davis. He used to be one of the fitness coaches at Celtic. He's a screenwriter now. I'll tell you a good story about that after, involving Drewy Ross and Angus Ross. So anyway, Mickey's in there and he's all over me. Hey, Teasy, what's going on? So, and back then there's no, there's no phones. So George Michael walks in, and he walks in with a chick, the Asian chick, Japanese chick, I think she was, from the commercial, I Want Your Sex, from the movie, from the video. So I'm like, man, it's George Michael, let's get a photo taken of her. So I've got a camera with me. So I said, Mick, here's the camera. I'm going to run over, put my arm, and just take my... So I walks over, hey, George, taps George Michael on the shoulder. He turns around. I just threw my arm around him. Hey, George, get a photo. And Mick takes a quick photo, and then Mick changes. I take a photo of him. About 30 seconds later, George Michael and this bird storm out of the party, Rod's party. Rod's manager's running around. Who pissed off George Michael? Who pissed off George Michael? Because seemingly he didn't like get his photo taken at these parties and stuff like that, So it was one of them, head down out the way. So anyway, an hour goes by. Next thing I know, I got a tap on the shoulder. I turn around, and it's the woman that I'd met in the hotel, the woman from Philadelphia. I was like, how the hell did you get in here? She says, oh, it was easy. We just told him it was on the guest list. I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, so anyway, one thing leads to another. It's stupid, it's crazy. Me and the chick end up in the bathroom. we're doing something, we shouldn't have been doing it in Rod's bathroom. Who opens it? I forgot to lock the door. Rod's manager opens the door, and there's me having sex with this chick in the bathroom. And Rod says, I was like, oh, nightmare. So what happened was, then a lot of rough people came in, just, they weren't invited because the security was terrible, really terrible. Well, as it happens, in that bathroom, some pictures of Rod's went missing. Some little pictures of Rod and his kids, So what did they do? Oh, it was all them Teasdale people that Teasdale sneaked into the party. He had them in the back of his car underneath a blanket. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, so they pinned the blame on me that I'd snuck a load of people into Rod's party in the back of my car under a blanket. And that's when I stopped playing with it. I'd sent Rod a letter and everything. I explained everything. I was Rod, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been having sex in the bathroom with a bird and that. But, I didn't invite these people and security. So that was it. I left his, I went and played with a bunch of British guys in Santa Monica, And years later, I was in a bar in Hollywood, and Rod walked in, and somebody had told him, hey, John Teasdale's over there. So he come up and he put his hand over my eyes and that. And I'm like, who's this? Who's that? And he's like, Teasy, how are you? And I was like, oh, Rod, how you doing? And I was with a group of people. And Rod he went, did you know that he had sex with a girl in my bathroom? all these people were like looking at me, and I was like, "Oh, God, Rod, stop." So that was fun times.
John, before I meant talking about your return to Elgin as a player with Pelly, I was just going to say, you mentioned Duran there. Before this lockdown, Duran were actually touring, and they've got a Aberdeen connection. Tommy, do you know what that connection is?
Nah, no idea.
One of their backing singers is none other than Jackie Copeland. Remember Jackie Copeland?
That rings a bell.
The lead singer with Horizon. And Aberdeen used to do Rothes, Aberlour, Karen, Duffdown, Craigelche, Huntley on a Sunday. Jackie Copeland is a backing singer with Duran, which is quite a good claim to fame, I would say.
That's a good kick at it.
John,
Oh, please.
you come back to Scotland, you turn out for your home team under the stewardship of Pelly.
Well, just quickly, like Stevie was saying about America, the thing I loved living in America was a lot of positive people, like Stevie said, the thing about Americans back in them days, if they could help you, they would do anything to help you. If things weren't going well for you, they'd be disappointed for you, blah, 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 But back in them days, I lived in an apartment with 4 guys. There was 5 of us, right? And in America, it used to be happy hour would be like 4 in the afternoon in all these bars and restaurants and stuff. And we had hardly any money between us. We just scraped enough to pay the rent and stuff. We would go for this happy hours, right? You'd have enough money in your pocket for maybe 1 round of beers. But they'd have free food. All these places had free food, happy hour food. So that was our meal for the day. I mean, they must have been thinking we were monkeys at the zoo, right? They were looking at us. I mean, people would come with 2 or 3 wee bits of meatballs, a wee bit of pasta, this chicken. Our plates were like stacked up here, like that was like unbelievable, And it was a bunch of English guys I lived with, And but it was just good times, man. It was great times. And then I was living with Linda Blair. I was dating Linda. I'd met her through the limit back, driving her to the studios. Linda Blair from The Exorcist, Another one of the nicest human beings in the world, an amazing woman. And I was on the phone to my mom, and my sister came on the phone. And I left Elgin when I was 18. So my wee sister was, how old was she? Was 10, 9 or something. So I was talking to my sister on the phone, and I came off the phone. And I said to Linda, I said, Linda, I've just spoke to my sister on the phone. I said, I was talking to a stranger. I said, I don't even know who my own family is, I said, because she was talking at the time, we were going to get married and all the rest of it. I said, listen, I don't want to get married to you, live out here, and never know my own family. I says, I need to go back to Scotland to at least get to know my family a wee bit, whether I want to stay there or not. And that's the reason I came home. I really came home just to get to know my family, you know, my sister Mary, my brother Mark, Michael and all that, my dad, my mom. And so I came home, and yeah, it's actually funny because I was going to sign for, it was Elgin or Lossy. It was one of the two. Frazee had asked me to come to Lossy, and I was like, oh, we'll see. And of course, Elgin, it was, you know, Elgin's, it's always a nightmare about money with Elgin. It's all, you know, I told Pelly, I said, well, just give me this or give me that. And then he go, oh, they didn't want to give you this. I'm like, Jesus Christ. It wasn't even a lot of money. It was hardly any money, you know. And in the end, I agreed to sign for Elgin. And then and we had a great season. We had, but, you know, when you become a manager, you need a bit of luck in management, you know. And Pelly's had done great. I think you take your hat off the guy, had a great career. But the luck he had was unbelievable. I mean, what manager gets John McGinley knocking on the door? And then the following season, John Teasdale comes back from America and knocks on your door. You know? I mean, how are you going to get two strikers like that? Can it come, you know, at the time when I was still a player, I still could play, and had the legs and all that. And it was a great season. I think I scored 28 that season. But my main contribution, I think everybody knows, it wasn't so much the goal scoring. It was, you know, I probably made a lot more goals. I made a lot more than I scored, you know. And we had a good strong team. We had you know, the midfield, Michael, Russell, Grasser played sometimes. Who else was it? We had Neefy, Chico, Ian McAllister. Ian MacArthur, sorry, and Tony Moan. Who else did we have? You know, Ali Jaffe. Ali Jaffe had a great season. You know, me and Ali together, we terrorised a lot of people. You know, Ali was a great compliment. He complimented me very well, and because he was a grafter. You know, he put a ton of graft in. You know, and
Stephen, you want to say something here?
Was Billy Ferris there that year, John?
Billy Ferris. Billy was brilliant. Billy was, I mean, his pace was unbelievable, you know. But as Tommy was talking earlier about characters and dressing rooms and stuff, and you know, we just, you know, I mean, I was the main instigator on that, but we just had great off the field. I mean, after the game in the City Club and that, Jesus God, I mean, I was never a big drinker. Never a big drinker, you know. I really, early in my age, I was never a big drinker, and you know, even I played doing in England, you know, a few 5, 6 beers, 7 beers, that would be me. I mean, we drink 12, 15 pints and have 15 drams in the City Club before we hit the high street, you know. And as Stevie said earlier, I probably shouldn't have hit the high street, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was a good, you know, it was, I don't know, man. We had a great season. We won a treble. I mean, how many teams won the treble? But looking back, you know, and Pelly, you know, Pelly, it's kind of strange. I mean, most people will tell you play for Pelly. I mean, everybody loves Pelly, you know. But Pelly never ever went and watched a player. He never went and watched a game. He turned up on a Saturday at 2:20. You know, and all the players are still in the dressing room, suits and that, suit shirt and that. I mean, half the time I would just start getting changed. And the guy's like, "Oh, Pelly's not here." I said, "Well, I don't care. I'm playing." You know, you know. But that was it. But I mean, you look back and you think, well, how could that happen? You don't name the team till 2:20, 2:25 sometimes, and we still get and crush people, you know. But that was just, it worked for him. That's what worked for him.
As you say, a lot of local lads, and it was a great camaraderie.
Yeah, it was a lot of local lads, man, and a lot of good players, you know. And I'm sure some of them guys could have got, if they'd got the break that maybe I'd got earlier in their careers, or, you know, they had that more of a hunger maybe they could have played pro themselves, you know. Well, my brother Michael, I knew my brother Michael was going to, you know, that season when I played with him, that first season, and I just seen the power in him, but even then he was still carrying a bit of beef in it, and I said, if Michael could lose a bit of beef in that, he'd get the right break, and I said he would have a chance, you know.
Yep.
But, yeah.
Great time. I mean, I certainly remember around about that time, John, quite often if I had a local game for us or Lossiemouth, I might have been doing a wee bit of shopping in Elgin with my missus before I set off to the game. And more than once, we would meet Rena coming down the other side of the pavement to run through the entire 90 minutes for the previous week to tell me about all the injustices that have been served upon John by the match officials the week before. And I used to take great pains to explain to her, Rena, I'm just a referee. I don't actually supervise referees. But wonderful times. She was always there with your sister, and I always gave her the time of day. And please, if you're speaking to her, shout out. I kind of lost touch. I was actually friends with her mum on Facebook, but I lost touch with her. I actually went back and forth and saw Michael when he was laid up in hospital, when he had his motorbike accident. Poor Michael had a captive audience, obviously, because he was strapped to the bed. So there's not much he could do about it. But we'll come back about your final part of your career at Elgin. But before I do that, I'm just going to ask you, do you remember the night when you were manager at Elgin? There was a friendly match arranged against Dundee. I don't know if you remember this or not. And Cowboy McCormick was the manager at the time, and it was supposed to be a 7:30 kickoff, and 6:30 comes and goes, and they haven't arrived. 8 o'clock comes and still haven't. You remember what happened? Eventually, again, no mobile phones, I think, or maybe car phones. Eventually, someone from Dundee stops at a phone box and phones Briggs and says, "We're here, but where about in Ellen is the ground?"
Aye.
I think we kicked off at something like 20-9 that night.
That's right. Aye.
Two 40-minute halves. But Dave will speak to you about the last segment. But John, for now, thank you very much indeed. Over to you, right. Dave.
Thank you.
Tommy.
Yeah.
1994. What's got to be the highlight of your career? You signed for Rothes. Wonderful days.
Yeah. Well, I actually, in my head, I was going to retire when I left Peterhead. I just thought, right, I'm done. Come at me, I'm 35. I've had maybe this is my time, Ken. And just out the blue, Ernie Drews, who Ernie played for Rothes at the time, him and Graham had got together, and I just received a phone call asking, "You come up, we're looking at a bit of experience of the team, etc." And I went, I spoke to my wife and I went, yeah, why not? Kind of went up. What a great bunch of lads. What a great place to play football. It's just such a family orientated setup, right? And I still believe that I think the colour saw the Orange Brigade now. I think it started with us. It really did. Because we had a thing we called the boogie bus, and they gave us a bus to take us up the road, and this thing just rocked for the minute we left Aberdeen till the minute we came back.
I could actually
want to come in about the boogie bus.
Well, I could actually tell you, I think it was the boogie bus was a minibus that had already retired. It was an ex Macallan Distillery staff bus that had obviously had served its time, and had got Graham Christie, I think, had kindly got it resprayed. I'll tell you how old it was. It was a Leyland Sherpa minibus. Right. There you go.
That's exactly right. A Leyland.
One seen, never. I think I've passed it quite a few times coming here for games. Stopped in a lay-by with the bonnet up.
You must have been. If you passed the bus, you must have been walking.
Carry on.
Happy days though, Tommy, at McKessick.
Yeah, it was great. I think, if I remember correctly, it was first time for a long time we qualified for the Scottish Cup. At that time you had to earn your right to play in the Scottish Cup. You weren't just in the Scottish Cup. You had to actually get the qualifying cup semi-final, which was just for a club like Rothes, it was fantastic. And I think we pulled East Fife away from home, which was a great experience for everybody. The BBC Scotland sports scene of it was at the time sent up Chick Young to do a segment on the club, and obviously we were training that night. I remember it was absolutely Baltic. We could have wore spikes in the ground and it still wouldn't have done any good. But there is doing shuttles now, and they're taking their camera, and Chick Young's trying to enter. What we did was all the boys got together and we chipped in. We bought a big purple afro wig and we kept it aside, Ken, until he was doing his segment. And as he was doing his segment up to give him a wig, Ken, he looked at it and he went, "Oh, God." We said, "Well, go on in." So he put the wig on, and this is Chick Young, sports scene, Rothes. Okay? He had to do that to the camera. They actually showed it on one. Remember, they used to do this end of season thing, they used to show all the out clips now. They actually showed that at one of their out clips show, and it just looked brilliant. He was so sincere when he did it, with this big, like a pig purple, kind of like an afro wig on. Everybody got into the spirit because it was a Scottish Cup. We didn't do anything. We gave them a good time, I think, for the first half, but they were obviously just a bit too strong for us. I think we got beat 4 or 5 or something like that. I can't remember really. But it was great experience. Great bunch of guys.
Who were some of your teammates that time, Tom?
Colin Smithy, he'd come from Peterhead. Gorgeous. Gorgeous had more clubs than Jack Nicholas. Who else? Fritz, Colin Henderson. Darcy was just a young loon. Andy Thane, Neil Essen. Big Ewan was a goalkeeper. Great bunch of boys. Everybody gave their all. Ernie Drews, obviously, who's just lent so much experience to the Hills. Ernie was just an absolute dream to play with. You know what I mean? He was a grafter. He hated losing beyond anything else. Hated losing. We played. I remember we played Devon Vale at Princess Park once, and Fritz and me and Fritz had been pushed. Fritz Splint and I had been pushed up for a corner. I'm at the edge of the box. Fritz is in. The bar came over and somebody actually headed Fritz in the side of the face, right? So he's like doing like a sack of tatties to teeing him off. That's about 5 minutes before half time. So we finished at half time. We'll go in, and Ernie's giving Abdi the "come on, lads," and he's looked at Fritz, and Fritz's face is just about caved in, and he sneezed. And when he sneezed, his eye went up in front of you like somebody had inserted a billiard ball inside of it. It just went like that. And Ernie looked at him and went, "You want to be fit for the second half, then, eh?" I'm like, no. And Fritz actually, he broke his eye socket and everything. I remember going in to see him in hospital up in Aberdeen, Albine. And what they'd done is they cut him to here, and had to peel his face back to get into to. He looked like someone who I reckon it was just like a $6 million man. Sewed him back up again, get another way around here. And how did this happen? And I said, "What's it done?" He says, "Oh, they peeled my face back." And oh God, what the worst injury I've ever seen in anyone. Just one sneeze, tennis ball. Just anyway, you watched it grow, and I'm like, "It's not a tumour, is it?" He said, "Aye, thanks very much." But aye, wonderful bunch of boys. Great club. Graham Scott was just like a really lovely guy to play for. You know what I mean? I think everybody at Rothes did it for the love of the club. Okay, and there was no egos, there was nothing like that there. You know what I mean? Abdi was just doing it for the love of the club and for the people. Okay, with young boys there, Andy Thane, he's a lovely guy, great player. Really good times. Like.
We've got a very loyal bunch of fans, Rothes, and they've never had much to celebrate over the years, but when they do celebrate, by God, they enjoy it.
Yeah, I've seen their videos.
Happy days, Tommy, and thanks for your contribution tonight. It's been great looking back at some great memories with you. Thanks for that, mate.
If you want, I'll give you one more story before I go.
Go for it.
My Highland League story that I've had. We played when I was at Lossy. We had a night out in Elgin, and everybody, the Aberdeen boys, were playing with staying with the local lads. We got up on a Sunday morning after a really heavy night out. Scott Patterson's missing. So we're now phoning around everyone. There's no mobiles then. We're phoning around everyone. I'm with Drew Ross's house, Stuart is at Stevie Q's. Scott is supposed to be wherever he is, he's near there. So we're like, oh my God. So I've decided to phone his girlfriend to say, look, he's missing. So I phoned Kerry and I'm like, Scott's missing. And she went, he's here. I'm like, here? What do you mean here? He's here, he's him in Tory. I'm like, how's he managed that? I find out later, he's fell into a taxi, completely smashed out his face in the back seat, and we said to the guy, Tory, mate. And the boys went, and he's noticed he's lost his jumper. So he drove out to Charlie White's house and said to him, look, I've got one of your players in the back of my taxi. It's just telling me to take him to Tory. He says, I'm a bit concerned about the fare. And Charlie says, take him. He says, we'll stand good for it if he doesn't come across. Right. So the drive, he wakens up in Dice, and he goes to the guy, where am I? The guy says, on your way to Tory, mate. He went, wherever? Dice? What am I doing in Dice? I'm supposed to be staying in Elgin. He went, you said to me to go home, mate. So he turned up at the house, and he knocked on the door about 2 in the morning. And Kerry come to the door, and she went, what are you doing here? I need £35 for a taxi. So she starts smacking him about the head. £35, 35, you absolute clown. He says, it's worse than that. He says, I've already gave him 30. So it's a one man that would do it and spent more money in a taxi than he ever spent in beer. And he landed up back home, took a taxi to Tory. Never heard nothing like it.
Brilliant, Tom. I'll give you a Charlie White story. We're at a lossy dinner one night and it's going really well, and the second speaker's on. All of a sudden, Charlie White's on the top table. All of a sudden, I hear this thump, and I, what the hell's that? And I look to my side, and Charlie had sunk a whole bottle of rum, and he'd somersaulted off the back of the stage, onto the floor, a drop of about 4 feet, and he's sitting there like this. Well, lying there like this. Never hurt himself at all. What a man, Charlie White.
Oh, it's an absolute gem.
Tommy, thank you for your contribution. Thoroughly enjoyed it, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Back
Great
to
stuff.
Martin.
Great stuff, Tommy. Hope you stay to the end. Didn't rush off.
Oh, no, I'll stay.
Stephen, you had a season in the Scottish League, as it would have been then, at Elgin City. Happy memories?
Oh, I don't know about that. I obviously had so many links with the club, and in the pre-season that year, we played Elgin City when we were at Bucky, and I was directly against Mike, John's brother, who I'd watched as a kid when I was training there with John and that. I just purely trained behind Mike and Soapy. If they did the run-in, I stayed on their shoulder because they were going to be the first two. If I was third, I was in good nick. So loved Mike, and still see him now when we're playing well at McGettrick. I still see him down at the sixes now and again, giving him some abuse. So scored 2 goals in the first half hour. It was a strange one. Right foot into the top corner, Martin Perry in goals, former Peterhead one. Left foot into the other top corner, complete freak of a day. So I ended up at Elgin later in that season. But Alec had gone, Harry McFadden had taken over. Turned up, we played on the Saturday, we played East Fife, started centre mid. They won the league that year, and we lost 1-0 with corner that was headed out. A guy just hit it in the volley, 25 yards, top corner. Nothing you could do about that. So this was good, enjoyed that. Went along to training on the Monday, brought in, looked around me, and everyone's sitting there going, 9 games left, guys, just 9 games left. Because it was just after Christmas and they'd played all the games and stuff. Like, this isn't what I'm used to. The place was an absolute morgue. It was horrific. Me and Grapies were there. We were getting on the bus in Elgin. You were driving for about an hour and a half before you picked up your next teammate. There's a couple of committee guys there. You were going down to East Stirling, and mentioned before. You were getting half a pie after the game. The games were brutal. It was you 4 at the back, 4 in midfield, 2 up front. With 2 guys, or 2 strikers were injured, so we're playing 2 tiny wingers up front. Kevin Steele, Steely, you'll probably have known Martin at some point in that, and Ryan Chef McMullen. Steely went on to play for Cove for a while. Neither of them wanted to be hit by a big centre half in the 3rd division. So they just ran wide with nobody up front through the middle. So Davy Hines sat in the middle. I just bombed in. Whenever the ball went wide, I bombed into the box. At half-time, Davy Robertson had now taken over. obviously ex-Rangers, who spent the majority of his career overlapping Brian Laudrup and running into the box. And he says, what are you doing in the centre of the box? And we, well, Steely's wide, Chef's wide, if the ball comes in, we've nobody in there. And he was like, aye, but you're centre mid. If you leave centre mid, that's a gap in the centre. Tynesy's there. It's like, do we want to score? And with that kind of debate, and I picked up an injury in the second half, and I was actually quite glad of picking up an injury in the second half. Grapey's got told by Davey never to cross the halfway line. Full back, if you get the halfway line, hit a diagonal. It just was horrible football. The place wasn't Elgin City that I knew, you know, and it just was a bad time for it. Things changed over the next few years. It's in a far better nick again now, but it wasn't a good time to be at Elgin, and for all the other happy memories that were there, there's not many from that time, that's for sure.
So at the end of that season, you join up with quite a few of your old mates.
Yeah.
Mossett Park.
Mossett Park, yeah. Well, we signed with, again, Ryan and myself went along for the signing chat with George Minty and Alan Scott. And Ryan never said a word. He got 4 times more than he expected to get. And that was it. But Grapey's joined as well because he refused. Elgin City took him to Gretna, and he'd one more game to play to get the trigger as 500 second part of his sign-on fee. And half of the players from down south were getting 500 a week. And they said to him, if you don't sign on the Friday nights, if you don't sign, you're not playing against Gretna tomorrow. And he was like, oh, well, screw you. And that was it. So he came with us. Mickey McPherson came. We also had Nick, Scott Matheson and Sean Scott from Lossy. And it was a good group. But by that time, the website had kicked in. And it became a different animal for me. I wasn't one of the team anymore. I wasn't able to give my opinion freely anymore and organise things. It became, I was a political figure, and I was like a white boots player now, and I was never a white boots player. So there was times when I was called out of training to go into the boardroom to explain why Jimmy Shaker was allowed to say something on the rumours page to the Forest Mechanics board, and I'd be like, that's the way the internet works. That's what happens. We don't let them say anything too nasty, but you've got to allow them an opinion. Blah, 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 blah. I'd go back out, training would be finished, turn up the game on the Saturday. I'd be on the bench. I was like, why am I on the bench? You missed training. I was like, but I was at training. The board called me, and it just became, at that point, a bit too much. But at the end of the season, we went on a great run. I sort of transformed slightly into a holding centre mid, let Scotty Matheson go forward. Charlie Rowley was obviously there at that time as well. Charlie Brown, we had a fantastic semi-final against Devon Vale, a really, really good Devon Vale team at the time. And we beat them 3-2 at Princess Royal Park, with Charlie Brown scoring one of the best hat-tricks I've ever witnessed being a part of. And we played Clach in the final, and we'd won the 7 games going into it, but Alan reverted to the team from the semi-final, and we were 3-0 down in the first 20 minutes. So my last game at that, what was going to be my last game, because I'd found the Highland League, just that, running the website a bit too much to play alongside. I came on for the last 25 minutes, and at the end of the game, at the final whistle, I just burst out in tears. Didn't understand, I hadn't expected it, but it just was a sort of reflection of what the Highland League had meant to me at that time, what I'd given to it, and the thought that actually this is the end.
Yeah. Having said that, you then had a couple of brief spells with Huntly and Lossiemouth.
The year Billy Anderson won the league at Huntly, at Christmas time, he wanted cover just in case there was a heap of injuries because they were in good position. So we agreed a deal. I signed for Huntly only on the basis that if they were struggling towards the end, I would come in and help see them over the line. I didn't need it, so it was fine. But I then played a couple of friendlies for them, not friendlies, games when Billy left and Scotty and Stuart Glennie took over. And that resulted in the week later I played for Tommy Madden's Lossy, who were really struggling up at Brora. I played golf in the morning, teed off at about 7:30 in the morning with Willie Grant, the King Willie, the Rothes and Elgin City legend, and then drove up to Brora. Was absolutely knackered. Played the whole game. We're 1-0 up or 2-1 up. About 5 minutes to go, and we got hit by a couple of diagonals and got beat 3-2. Tommy charmed me into signing.
Brilliant. Now, meanwhile, the websites go from strength to strength. I'll touch on that in a minute or two. But you got involved in a wee bit of management at a club very dear to myself, up in Dufton.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Just to give the viewers some idea, tell them about the setup at Dufton, the Westburn Park and the arrangement there, because it may not necessarily be, familiar to everybody who watches the show.
Well, I mean, for a start, Dufton were in abeyance, so they didn't have a team that year. So Alan Murray and Dougie McCormack had spoken to us, and me and Fraser Bremner decided to go for it that year. Lovely little ground. It's just, you see it when you're going into Dufton, but it's even better the view out. You just have the dugouts at one side and you're just viewing out over the valley going down below. My brother actually lived just 2 houses along from there, so that was ideal. My mother's a Dufton Cowan, so she was always looking out for the name of Martin Johnson refereeing my games when I was early Highland League, because she reckoned there was some kind of inbred family connection one way or another coming from Dufton. And it was just, the committee were great. Having been a qualified referee for 4 or 5 years by this time, always made sure welcomed the refs in, and just thoroughly enjoyed a great time there with some really good players.
Well, I was going to touch on the fact there that you, Dave, and I obviously have something very much in common, and that is we're all qualified referees, so we're all qualified referees at one time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'll give you some compliments, Martin. Of all the ones in the 90s, I was always quite happy to have you reffing, despite the fact that the likes of Alan Freeland, Mike Ritchie, Craig Mackay, all of them who went on, it tended to be the more officious ones who went on and the ones who thought less about the game. So well done.
I'll take that as a huge compliment. But as we all know, the best referees are always the ones that are retired. Stephen, without going into too much detail, where are you at with the technology now? I know you are working on a project for a piece of equipment. Just tell us very, very briefly about that.
Well, basically, at the minute, instead of using pen and paper, we work it so it can be an app that's worn on the sleeve in the phone. So we've went through IFAB approval, so it can be used on the pitch. We went through the entire testing process when John Fleming was on the go at the SFA, so we got approval for doing that. It was being used in the women's game initially. It's got the potential to work in any country in the world. It speeds up the refereeing process. Instead of writing down, it's just like 2 or 3 taps. But at the same time, it captures all the information. So it can give you video printers from absolutely every level of the game. It can capture kids, for child protection side of things, where the kids are, our coaches there. It also, from the scouting point of view, can capture who's scoring a lot of goals in certain leagues. It can balance out all these things. The data that's captured by it's massive, and it cuts time for everyone. So at the minute, instead of reporters chasing referees, team lines and all this kind of thing, it's done like that. Instead of paper team lines, it's organised by yourself just with a few taps. It's submitted. It's with the referee taps submitted. It's with the press, it's with the fans, it's with everyone, and it goes at all levels. So the opportunities are there. The problem is it takes a little bit of time, and time takes money.
Does the product have a name, Stephen? Is it?
We Ref, just we.ref, and We Soccer is the overall package that goes around it.
Okay, so what we'll really say to viewers is watch this space, and if there's an opportunity for shares to be purchased in We Ref, then get your wallet out. It'd be a great idea. Stephen, we'll be watching its progress with much interest, I can assure you. And thanks again for joining the show.
Cheers, and good to see the other lads as well.
Dave.
John, you finished your playing career at two diverse clubs, East Stirlingshire and Rothes. How did that come about?
Well, hello?
Yep.
You hear me?
Yes, John. Yep. Yes, we hear you.
Well, after I'd been manager at Elgin and all that, and I left there, I called Jim Duffy up at Dundee, because my brother was at Dundee. I said, Jimmy, do you mind if I come down and do a wee bit of training? You know, I can help coach strikers and stuff like that if you want. So he said, yeah, no problem. So I went down to Dundee, and I was coaching the strikers a couple of afternoons a week and that. And training, playing, and that, and I played a couple of games for Dundee reserves, and something you mentioned earlier, Cowboy, he was the assistant manager, and he asked me, he said, listen, he said, my pal's a manager at East Stirling. He said, do you fancy a game for them? You know, they're struggling for players. I said, yeah, why not, you know? So he fixed that up. So I was kind of training with Dundee, coaching their players, the strikers in the afternoons, and I played a few games for East Stirling on a Saturday, you know.
And then landed up at McKessick Park just to finish your career.
You know, I think it was Graham. I think it was wee Graham. You know, lovely guy, smashing guy, Graham Scott, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Aye. So I had a few games with Rothes. Nice. People be treating me fantastic. You know, it was, and it's kind of weird because, to be honest, I get a lot of stuff happened between me and Rothes guys. One of the worst things that happened when I was Elgin manager is I got in a fight with a guy for Rothes. Right, battle up the high street, up the Plainstanes. So the police came to my house the next day and charged me with assault. So what people forget, and that was all over the front page, because I was manager at Elgin, that was all over the front pages of the Scottish newspapers. It was on that news station at night time, as you guys all know. You know, and it was massive because that I battered this guy, you know. But when they didn't to tell, although I pressed charges against him as well, but that was never a story. You know, he was the one that came up and stuck ahead with me in the Johannes. So I always had a thing with the Rothes guy, and I have nothing against him. I mean, if I met the guy tomorrow or any of these guys, I'd shake their hand. It's not a problem with me, but that was, so I was kind of surprised when even Rothes, the guy, when wee Graham asked me to come and play with Rothes because, you know, because of the bad blood with the guys from Rothes, you know, but everybody, it really did, you know.
Okay, John. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at an old Highland League handbook from 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and we can't have you on here without touching on the subject of the 1992-93 title that Elgin City won, and then Elgin City had it taken away from them. Now, my own opinion, John, and it's only my opinion, I think it was a sledgehammer to crack a nut. The punishment didn't fit the crime. Elgin should have been possibly had a point deducted or points deducted and maybe a fine and still been awarded the Highland League title, because it saddens me. One of the saddest things of all, in the handbook, season 1992-93, it says, title not awarded, and that was the Highland League centenary season. And not to have a champion in the centenary season, my personal view is it was the wrong decision. And I know moves have been afoot lately to get Elgin City reinstated as the champions, but I was there that Friday night. You hammered Forest Mechanics 6-0. It was a great display of football. The guys went up, they got their medals, and a few days later, some guys who'd never had a medal before lost that medal and never won anything in the game. It was a sad, sad night and a sad, sad end to that story, John.
Yeah, you know, like I say, I'm a great believer in fate, man. And I honestly thought that I had a chance of taking my career further as a manager, coach. I had visions of myself going back into the professional game in England and all that. And that ruined it. That put a stop to all of that. But because of that, I ended up coming back to America. And, you know, I met my wife at the time, and I had my daughter. So the way I look at it is, I would have never had my daughter if things had gone the other way. And my daughter's worth more to me than any amount of leagues, any amount of medals, any amount, you know what I mean? So I look at it that way. But I was angry for a long time, Dave. I was angry, I was bitter, I hated Bobby Wilson. I hate because Bobby was the one. My buddy at the time, Mikey Taylor, was at the game. He told Bobby Wilson, "Hey, Teasdale pulled a fast one." He had the game pulled forward. Bobby went into the changing room. I don't know if it was halftime or after the game, and he told who was ever in there, and that's how it went. But that was back then. And to me, Bobby Wilson's probably, along with Mac, the best managers that's been in the Highland League. You know, when you look at your career, look what Bobby did at Keith, look what he did at Ross County, and especially at Ross County, because there was no checkbook. He wasn't signing players for $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. So I'm not against Bobby. I was just bitter and angry at the time. But I still say to people this day, tell me the rule I broke. Can somebody tell me the rule I broke? I never broke a rule. I would never have jeopardized that. If somebody said to me, "John, if you do this, you're breaking the rules," I would never have done it. Never. I asked my secretary. The secretary says, "Well, the suspensions are on the Saturday. The game starts." So I thought, wait a minute, if we play on the Friday night, if they agree to it, I could maybe get Jim Duffy to bring Dundee up on the Sunday. Big celebration, would make a lot of money. It would help me. I was always thinking about getting more players. I said, that would get me money for more players. So I called the Highland League, asked them. They said, as long as it's okay with Keith, it's okay. As long as it's okay with Forrest, it's all okay with us. Okay. I called George Cowie, and George, bring a game. I says, I'm going to play Forrest. And I didn't say it's because of suspensions. No, of course I didn't. I said, Dundee's come to play us on a Sunday. Can you play you on the Friday? He went, aye, no problem. So we never broke. There was no rule. Absolutely no rule. So it was, there's no doubt about it. And that's the thing I feel bad about. I feel bad for the players who never got a medal. And I feel bad for the fans who travelled. I mean, you guys will know, our average home crowd that year was about 900. We were taking 500, 600, 700 to away games. You know, Elgin City put a lot of money in a lot of clubs' pockets that season. And I feel bad for the fans, you know. But there were certain people in the Highland League that wanted to get me. I mean, I know, everybody knows, you know. And God bless him, God rest his soul. You know, Sandy Stables, I had a chat with Sandy when I was briefly manager at Huntley. And a lot of it comes from there. It stems from when Elgin played Keith at Borough Briggs. We drew 3-3. I don't know who it was, but somebody in the Keith committee was shouting racial abuse to Sammy, Big Sammy Leons. My buddy Steve Marcella, we all know Big Stevie. Big Stevie jumped in, grabbed it. It was a fracas that went on. It came from there. I heard about it afterwards. And I said to him, I'll get Keith back. I'll get them back for that. So when we played Keith towards the end of the season, we're winning 5-1. That's something I shouldn't have done. I took 2 players off and played the last 10 minutes with 9 men. as that was me to say to Sandy and the committee, stuff you guys. No, I've nothing against Keith. Wish them all the best. Andy Troop said, I love wee Andy. I really do. I hope Keith do well. You know, Andy's a great guy, and I've nothing against anybody. I don't hold grudges like that, like I used to. I don't, you know, and I was never everyone big to hold grudges anyway. But from what I heard, the guy from Rothes worked for Sandy. He was on the Rothes committee. He was the one that seconded it. The guy from Inverness proposed it. Rothes seconded it. And I believe Rothes threw the guy off the committee either that week or a few weeks later. Because that night, Davy, at any Highland League meeting, you know and I know, members have no right to vote on behalf of their committee unless they've spoke about it at their committee. Right? This was never brought back to committees to see how they were going to vote. That was proposed, seconded, voted on right there that night. It was 100% stitch up. And I was going to sue the Highland League. I was going to do a lot of things. I spoke to an attorney to you know, because it ruined my career. It ruined my career. But in the end, like I say, I came back to America, and I've had a great time in America, man. I've had a blast in America. You know, and I'm here now. I have a beautiful girlfriend, and I have a great time. So it's just time moves on. Should the Highland League do it? That's only up for them. I would imagine people in the game now, you know, would be smart enough to sometime turn around and say, hey, come on, let's rectify this. But you got to look at Elgin City as well. What did Elgin City do because let me tell you something. I'll tell you right now. If that had been done to Ross County or Cali or even Keith or a Huntly or any of them teams with Forbes and them type of guys, there's no way in the heavens that them chairmen would have allowed that to happen. No way. Absolutely no way. Them men would have stuck up for their club. So what happened? Our chairman ran out of the meeting. You know, ran out of the meeting. So, Elgin, Davey, in all honesty, what happened to me at Elgin City should never happen to any manager. The fight I went through just to get a player, the fight, you know, the players I signed at Elgin City, most of the money came from me asking businessmen in the town. I mean, I got $7 grand to sign Soapy Cameron from 2 businessmen in the town. And you know, Jimmy Henry, the chairman, said at the time, or vice chairman he was, he says, nah, Malone, that's nae your money to decide far it's gone. That's club's money. I said, Jimmy, we're not getting that money unless I sign this player. This isn't the club's money, you know, to sign Soapy Cameron. You know, so it was turmoil. It was, as Stevie's just said, when he went back there and played with them, nothing much has changed. If Elgin, and it's, in all honesty, good luck to them. I wish them all the best. But it's a disgrace that club's been 20 years in the Scottish Third Division. Look what happened to Ross County. Look what happened to Cali. Look what Cove Rangers have just did. You know what I mean? And there's Elgin, 20 years in that division. Why? Because they've never had the leadership. And all good luck to Graham Tatters. Graham's a nice slashing guy. But Graham's not a Forbes Shand. He's not a Alan McRae. He's not, you know, the guys at Cali and Ross County and that. He's not going to build a club. Not going to bring money into a club. That's not the type of person, and he's not surrounded by that type of people. And that club has sat still. It's sat still from even before I was played there. It's pretty much sat still since I was 14, 15-year-old there. You know what I mean? And it's a shame because great place, great people in Elgin. I love it. I love the club. But yeah, I was sad. I was sad for a long time, man. I was really bad. I would have bad nights, and but you know, like I say, time moves on, and I'm lucky. I'm a very lucky man. I have the family. I have the mother. My mother's an amazing woman, and let me tell you, you were talking about her earlier on. There was many of there was many a Saturday night she drove around Elgin High Street at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, looking for me, and she would find me. And I was lucky that she found me, you know. So I've been lucky, my great family, mother and father, brother, sister, and I've a lot of great friends back in Elgin. So it's not anything that bothers me anymore. It really doesn't bother me anymore. A guy called me up a few months ago. Stevie knows the guy. He said, "Oh, they're doing an issue with you." I said, "Listen, it's pointless. It's pointless, man. Nothing's going to happen." So I don't hold any hopes up for it, but I think it would put the Highland League in a good light. It's a good standard if they changed it this soon, you know.
Can I come in with 2 points?
Yes, Stevie, on you go.
First of all, John, obviously I was in the youth team. I spent a lot of the Saturdays on the terracing that year. You didn't have to apologise for anything. That was a great year to be an Elgin fan. And the game against Cali in particular, where you kicked the corner flag when you were meant to be taking a corner. And the other thing, when like Neefy, Neefy's goal for the halfway line in the 98th, I think you scored in the 94th minute. And what was a game that effectively won the title that year. The memories, and there was easily 1,000 there that night. That was just fantastic night. And anyone who was a part of that fan base that year will always remember it, will always love that experience. On the other side, right now, thanks to the work of the likes of active schools and that, there's been a good amount of festivals from P1, 2, 3, P4, 5, P6, 7. Young kids have been playing football for quite a bit now in Murray. We now see players like Colin Mitchell's-Loon is in the under-15s at Aberdeen. John Rattray, his son Tom's playing for Scotland under-17s. He's at Aberdeen. You've got Davy Harvey's son, Liam, up front for Aberdeen in the same team as Mike Teasdale's son, Josie. Also in Aberdeen at that, we've got lads at Cali and a really strong under-12, under-11 and under-10 coming through at Elgin. There is the basis for a team of local players 7-8 years down the line that would be good enough to take on do the sort of job that Peterhead and Cove have done, albeit with more financial backing than Elgin have ever had, and to come out of this. So I think there's a potential for good times ahead for Elgin, but the fans are going to have to wait for a few years still. Stevie,
thanks for that. John, we've always had a great working relationship, John. It's an absolute delight. I mean, you're one of the Highland League's biggest ever characters. I'm glad to see you've lost none of that charisma. I hope you'll give my regards to your mum. I haven't seen that pink coat for a wee while. I don't know if she's still got it or not, but I used to walk down the high street and I used to see Mrs. Teasdale and I thought she's going to make a beeline for me, and she did. And we're always a good crack about football. And please give my best to your brother Michael as well.
She's a good woman. Let me tell you a quick story. Is Tommy still there, right?
Yes, right.
A quick story, guys. Okay, so as manager at Elgin, right? You all remember Mike Rogers, right? Great character, a physio. Yeah. Love Mike, bless him, God rest his soul. So Mike lived in a place called Craigie Bar, right? And they had a local pub and a football team. So Mike says, "Oh, the boys from Craigie Bar, I want to have a game, you know." So I used to drink in the Imperial Bar. You remember the Imperial Bar, guys, in Elgin? So I used to drink up there. We Drew Ross, Angus, a good mate of mine, and so I arranged this game, right, against Craigie Bar. So Willie Barron, we all know Willie Barron, right? So I says to Willie, Willie, I need you to be my assistant manager, okay? I said, so I need to keep your eye on the players, and all right. He was so chuffed. So I arranged this game for a Sunday afternoon. It was all the boys out of the pub, and myself and we Drewy, a few other guys. So the game's at 3 o'clock in Craigie Bar through Aberdeenshire. So I told the boys, I says, right, meet at 12 o'clock. We'll meet at 12 o'clock outside the Imperial. So Sunday, the bar doesn't open until 12 o'clock, right? So I goes waltzing down the road. I lived up close, not far from it. So I go down the road about quarter to 12, whatever it was. And there's Willie Barron, and he's pacing up and down outside the Imperial, and the bus is there, right? And he's like, swearing up, bastards. I said, what's wrong with you, Willie? He says, they're all drunk. I said, what do you mean they're all drunk? And I'm looking on the bus, right? I'm looking at the money. There's nobody on the bus. I said, what do you mean they're all drunk? He says, they're in the pub. And I'm looking and the front doors are shut. I said, what do you mean in the pub? The pub's not open yet, Willie. It's only quarter. He said, they're in the pub, they're all drunk. So I climbed up on the window. I looked in the window. And every table in the pub was full of glasses, nip glasses, pint glasses. I was like, oh my God. So anyway, I get them out of the pub. We get on the bus and we drive through Aberdeen, Craigievar. What about 12 stops for everybody to take a pee, right? They're all up. So we play this game. I get the ball gets played to me. It's about 15 minutes into the game. And I look soon, I've got Drewy on the right wing and Angus on the left wing, the two brothers. For them, anybody in the Highland League doesn't know him. Drewy's the best character in the Highland League, one of the best ever. And his brother Angus is amazing. So I've got to pass the ball to Drewy. Drewy's off the field. And this is a football pitch in the middle of all these fields, right? He's hanging on a fence, spewing his ringer. So I turn to go, I turn to pass to Angus. And Angus is off the pitch on the other side, spewing his ringer around the fence. Oh, it was brilliant, man. Brilliant. Anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Sure has.
Thanks for that, John.
Dave, do you have a head scratcher for this week?
Yeah, well, yes, it is. We've got Murray guys here, and this is about a man who made his life in Murray. I'm looking for a name, and I'm looking for maybe 3 names in my question. This man sadly died last year at the age of 87. He played for 3 Scottish League clubs, and in the late 60s, he came and made his home in Murrayshire, where he managed and coached and played for 2 Murrayshire clubs. His 2 sons, or 2 of his 3 sons, went on to play Highland League football for Murray clubs also. Can you give me the gentleman's name and the names of his 2 sons?
Brilliant, Dave. And how do our viewers get their answer to us?
Well, if they look at the bottom of their screen as we speak just now, it'll say @UpTheDooney, and that's our hashtag. And if they go to @UpTheDooney and put in their answer, we'll hopefully get a few right answers next week, Martin.
Great stuff. Gents, once again, it's been a fantastic show. Thanks to Tommy Madden, to Stephen Rattray, and to John Teasdale for taking the time out. John, I appreciate you were a wee bit reserved about coming on the show. We are delighted that you gave it some thought and reconsidered. It's been fascinating to hear about your career and not just about events that happened at Borough Briggs towards the end of your career. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, folks, we've got a guest who started his career at Ibrox, and like 2 of our guests, or 3 of our guests tonight, ended up pulling on a lossy shirt for a short spell. We've got a guest who once managed to sign for 3 clubs in one day. I think we'll know who that is. And our third guest is no relation to our first guest and had a 4-year love affair with Nancy. As always, folks, we wish you well, tell you to stay safe, and please join us again next Sunday night. Thank you.